Chapter 306. I've greatly underestimated this murderer. This will be a tough battle. It seems that the divine spell imprint is not easy to obtain. The human youth realized the reality and took it seriously. He continued to pursue the young merman. Once he moved at high speed, he was much faster than the young merman. He quickly closed the distance between them. The young merman turned back to fight again. The human youth was already mentally prepared. He immediately stopped his pursuit and calmly retreated, pulling away from the young merman. The young merman did not have the advantage of a surprise attack like before. His movements were always seen by the human youth. It was difficult for the young merman to turn back and engage in close combat. However, to be able to make a gold-tier champion retreat on his own accord, just this point alone was enough for the young man to be proud of himself as a silver tier. The situation of the battle was changing. The young merman turned back to charge, wanting to kill the human youth. However, the young merman was even faster. He kept retreating, widening the distance between them. The young merman was at a disadvantage. The young merman was a spellcaster. Once he could maintain a distance, his advantage would be very obvious. Clang, clang, clang. The young merman plucked the strings of his guqin. Every 3 vibrations of the strings produced at least one sound blade. The sound blade cut through the water, forming a translucent shadow. The young merman had already experienced the sharpness of these sound blades. He did not take them head-on. Instead, he dodged left and right. As a result, his attempt to close in on the young merman was severely damaged. He spent a lot of time and energy dodging the sound blades. The young merman smiled. This battle had completely fallen into his rhythm. He began to play a tune instead of just plucking the strings. The tune was slow and melodious. After the prelude, it had the effect of a spell. The young merman's movements were affected by the spell and became slower. This was a tune that could slow down the target's movements. At this moment, the young merman had yet to reach the young merman. He could only use the same trick again. He opened his mouth and spat out poisonous fish bones. However, the fish bones were also affected by the tune. They were at least 30% slower than before. The young merman had no choice but to use all his battle chi. His scales rippled with a faint silver light. He had finally reduced some of the effects of the spell, and his speed had increased slightly. However, there was still a gap between his speed and before. The young man easily dodged all the poisonous fish bones that came at him. Since Barbarian Yu had used all of his fighting energy, he was able to offset part of the magic spell's effect. But he didn't, and the speed of the poisonous fish bones gradually slowed down to an unbearable level. It's a pity that even though I've absorbed quite a bit of the poison arrow fishman bloodline, I haven't grasped any related fighting techniques. Otherwise, these poisonous thorns would be much more threatening with the support of related Do techniques. The poison arrow fishman's Do technique could allow their poisonous stingers to fly faster or more nimbly make turns. It could also split into some arrow shadows to confuse the enemy. Manu had a grim expression on his face as he suddenly turned around and ran. He escaped again. The young man couldn't help but laugh. In their first clash, Manu had relied on a sneak attack to catch the human youth off guard and put him in a very sorry state. Then in the second collision, Manu suffered a crushing defeat, and the young man from the human race firmly grasped the initiative. The only gratifying thing was that Manu was still in his peak condition and hadn't suffered too many injuries. When the enemy advances, I retreat. When the enemy retreats, I advance. The human youth firmly grasped the essence of guerrilla warfare and continued to chase after Barbarian Yu. Under the influence of the spell, Barbarian Fish's condition kept deteriorating, and his speed became slower and slower. The human youth, on the other hand, was becoming more and more relaxed. As he pursued, he cast all kinds of spells one after another. Whoosh, whoosh. Manu turned around and shot out poisonous stingers, but the human youth dodged them one by one or used spells to easily block them. You have quite a lot of poisonous stingers. Are you a hybrid of Barbarian Yu and Poison Arrow Fishman? Strange. These two bloodlines are of the same grade, but you don't suffer from a conflict between them? Could it be that the Do Chi art you cultivate can balance these two bloodlines? I'm getting more and more interested in you. The human youth calmly started to speak, using words to attack his opponent's morale. Man Yu's long-range attacks seemed to be limited to poisonous arrows, and his attacks were too monotonous. On the other hand, the human youth's spells were a riot of colors. Both sides chased for a while longer. Man Yu's speed had decreased to half of his peak, and his body was covered in wounds. Even so, the human youth didn't get close and still maintained a certain distance cautiously. This way, even if Man Yu wanted to disguise himself and make the human youth carelessly close the distance and launch a counterattack, it wouldn't be possible. The human youth stroked the zither strings and played a few notes before suddenly singing. The undercurrent is turbulent. The future is uncertain. Barbarian you of the deep sea, advance and retreat, dash left and right. Leap forward and crawl, ambush in an overbearing manner. His hands are raised, his legs are firm. Obediently shut up and enter the cage. Just be bound. The music was brisk. After the human youth finished singing, Man Yu was bound. A translucent cage appeared around him, and his hands and feet were bound to the cage, completely losing his freedom. Even his fish mouth was suppressed by force, and he couldn't open it, so he couldn't shoot any fish stingers. This guy, Man Yu was extremely shocked. This was because he had just witnessed the human youth create a spell on the spot and use this spell to bind him. The improvement of Do Chi arts and Do Chi arts required continuous adjustments from generation to generation. The perfection of spells required the careful improvement of mages bit by bit. Unlike Do Chi practitioners and mages, bards and warsong shamans could create their own songs. These songs often had all sorts of miraculous powers. However, bards and warsong shamans who could create their own songs were extremely rare. Throughout history, they were extremely rare. The most famous among them was the Cat King of the beast race. But now Man Yu saw one of them. This young man of the human race was truly too amazing. It's over. Man Yu smiled as he completely controlled Man Yu. Even though victory was in his grasp, he still maintained a safe distance from Man Yu, not giving him any chance to counterattack. His pinky gently stroked the innermost string. With a light pluck, he would be able to deal the final fatal blow to Man Yu. At this moment, something unexpected happened. Two bright blue light beams suddenly rose from the depths of the dark ocean trench, shining on the young man's body in an instant. His pupils shrunk to the size of a needle tip, and a shocked expression froze on his face. The blue pillars of light suppressed him, making him unable to move. His little finger was already on the strings of the zither, but he couldn't pull off such a small action no matter how hard he tried. An ambush! Is this a trap? Gold rank. Man Yu thought that he was already cautious enough, but he still fell for it. Boom! The next moment, he heard the roar of a giant cannon. He couldn't turn his head, and from the corner of his eye, he saw a terrifying electric current coming at him. A premonition of death filled his heart. He knew that he was finished. The electric current, as thick as a python, hit Man Yu almost instantly, and dazzling electric light shot everywhere. Deep sea monster, arc cannon, python bullet, gold grade magic energy ship, gold grade cannon, gold grade cannon. The ambush had already been set up and waiting. During the chase, Barbarian Yu didn't communicate with deep sea monster fish because this tactic had been planned long ago. Since he wanted to scout the enemy, he naturally had all sorts of plans to deal with the danger. Deep sea monster had very strong concealment abilities and had been hiding here all this time. Once it discovered that Man Yu was under attack and his life was in danger, it would fire. It was precisely because of Deep Sea Monster that Man Yu was confident that he could fight a gold-grade enemy underwater. From beginning to end, he didn't transform into a dragon man, nor did he transform into an ocean loach to escape. Whether it was the first surprise attack or the second futile resistance, they were all his tactics. When Man Yu thought that victory was in his hands, he had already fallen into Man Yu's carefully laid death trap. It's over. Man Yu regained his freedom. The spell cage that had restrained him had already dissipated. The terrifying electric current was still being emitted. Even Man Yu wouldn't be able to escape from such a powerful attack. not to mention hook gold. However, deep-sea monster was related to Maze Island, so Man Yu wouldn't use it unless he had no other choice. In fact, Man Yu had almost used hook gold in the battle. However, Man Yu was still alive. His body shone with a layer of godly light. Although the godly light was weak, it firmly resisted the terrifying electric current attack from the outside. The next moment, godly power surged, and the godly light expanded, repelling all the electric current. This godly power, it's the god of love. Man Yu was furious. What? Man Yu was shocked to see Man Yu safe and sound after the electric current dissipated. God's chosen one. Man Yu had God's blessing on him. When he was at death's door, God's blessing had played a role and protected him. How could Man Yu fight? As long as God's blessing doesn't disappear, Man Yu is immortal. Man Yu no longer had the will to fight and retreated. He didn't rendezvous with deep-sea monster. This magic ship wasn't fast, about the same speed as Ship Justice. Once it was exposed, it would be attacked by Man Yu. Deep-sea monster was huge and far less agile than Gold Transcendence. If they fought head-on, Man Yu would definitely be at a disadvantage. God of Love, you damn guy. Man Yu angrily rebuked God of Love. Then, he locked his gaze on Man Yu. Very well, Man Yu, you've successfully angered me. Man Yu pounced on Man Yu again. Man Yu was shocked when he heard Man Yu's words. Did God of Love bless and protect him? Why does he have such an attitude toward God of Love? His hatred is as deep as the sea. Wait, a thought flashed through Man Yu's mind. He immediately changed his plan of retreat. Instead of diving deeper into the trench, he swam toward the surface. Man Yu began to close the distance. Fighting technique, wave treader. Water spurted out from Man Yu's feet, propelling him up rapidly. Man Yu was stunned. This Murloc clearly had a fighting technique to increase his speed, but he didn't use it at all. Everything he did before was a deliberate act. Was he still a Murloc? Too sinister and cunning. Man used Anger Sword as he chased after him. However, the distance between them couldn't be shortened as easily as before. On the other hand, Man Yu was still worried about Deep-Sea Monster. Man Yu was wise not to let Deep-Sea Monster come out to fight. If it didn't come out, it would be more effective. Man Yu's vision grew brighter and brighter. Both parties were quickly rising to the surface. Man Yu activated his blood core and transformed into Dragon Man form. The young man was once again taken aback by this strange sight. What the hell are you? There's a fleet above? Pooh! Waves surged as Man Yu leaped out and landed on the deck of Ship Justice. The pirates on Ship Justice were already on standby. The scouting magic device had already detected the situation of the chase at the bottom of the sea. Zhonggu and Songsu immediately stood beside Man Yu. Be careful, he's a gold bard, Man Yu said. The next moment, Man Yu broke through the surface of the sea and soared into the sky, looking down at the Justice Pirates fleet. Justice? Pirates? Man Yu narrowed his eyes and was about to strum the strings when he suddenly saw a figure on the deck. His movements stopped abruptly. Covered in dust. The man covered in dust raised his head and saw the human youth. He exclaimed, "Third Master." Chapter 307. The third leader of the Flame Beard Pirates, Feng Yao. A saint-level bard, recognized by the world as extremely talented. He was once hailed as the genius most likely to become a legend. And it was precisely because of his stunning talent that the goddess of love was tempted. The love god expressed her feelings to Feng Yao. However, Feng Yao rejected the love god's advances. In a fit of anger, the goddess of love cursed him. This was the famous love god's curse. Handsome man, how could you be so heartless? I curse you, you heartless person. You will fall in love with a woman you can never get. You will be whipped by love and pursue her wholeheartedly, only to be rejected by her again and again. When you're rejected, you'll feel the hurt I'm feeling right now, the sorrow and pain in my heart right now. You'll be rejected once, twice, thrice. You'll be rejected endlessly. Your pain will never end. Feng Yao was cursed and became the most romantic pirate on the sea. He always fell in love with someone he shouldn't have, such as the queen, the wife of a legend, or the fierce female pirate. He was blinded by love and pursued her impulsively. He was attacked again and again, not only in his heart, but also in his body. He was injured again and fell into a desperate situation. If not for Flamebeard protecting him in time, he would have died. Feng Yao also fell into deep guilt and self-blame. He didn't want to implicate his companions, so he took the initiative to leave the Flamebeard pirates and acted alone. A banquet was held on the Justice. A gray man poured the best wine for Feng Yao. Third leader, aren't you a saint level? Feng Yao drank the wine in one gulp. Sigh. I entered the half-plane in the eye of the sea and confessed my love to the blue charm god, but I was rejected. I was sealed and my strength dropped to gold level. The others looked at each other. Confessing his love to a goddess? This bard was too daring. Wait, blue charm god? Song Su frowned and asked deliberately. Feng Yao said honestly, when the eye of the sea erupts, the hidden half-plane will open a crack and connect with the main world. Inside is the main temple of the blue charm god. I have been there. My courtship failed. After I was sealed by blue charm god, I was injured by the sacred beast. However, the goddess did not execute me. Instead, she stopped the sacred beast when it was about to kill me. I was heavily injured and was saved by the Mare people. They thought I was a blasphemer, but blue charm god did not kill me. Instead, they imprisoned me. Their attitude towards me is very complicated. On the one hand, it's because blue charm god's attitude towards me is unclear. On the other hand, I'm the third leader of the Firebeard pirates. They don't want to provoke Firebeard. As for blue charm god, she has many identities such as Calm Lake god, Fish god, Wave Breaker god, and so on. Then why did you come after our captain? Lan Zhao asked. Although he was only bronze ranked, he fanatically worshipped and respected the Draconid youth. Therefore, his tone towards Feng Yao was very bad and his expression was fierce. Feng Yao took a deep look at the Draconid youth. Misunderstanding. He smiled bitterly. The dragon captain caused havoc in Ci City. I did not know his true identity. I thought he was a merperson. The reason I want to kill him is because the 3 high races have promised me that I can inherit the dragon captain's god skill mark. With the qualification to participate in the fish god's test, I can successfully enter the demiplane again. Ahem. The Draconid youth coughed twice and explained, after I dived into the sea, I turned myself into a merperson and snuck into Ci City to investigate the enemy. So, the captain can turn into a merperson? The experience on the Island of Confusion allowed Lan Zhao and the others to understand the secret of the youth's were-beast transformation. Feng Yao stared deeply at the Draconid youth. You're not just simply investigating the enemy. You've turned Ci City upside down. At least 20 black iron fishmen have died at your hands, and a silver-level spellcaster as well. You caused a huge explosion and blew up the most important temple in Ci City. You made Five-Headed Snake furious, causing countless lives and property losses. You almost destroyed Ci City. There was such a thing. Captain, what exactly did you do? Everyone was shocked. The Draconid youth coughed again. I was thinking about the future. When the Sky Pillar Ci erupts, the Justice Pirates will have to fight with the forces of Ci City. If there is a chance, I will try my best to weaken the enemy. Unfortunately, if you did not suppress Five-Headed Snake, Ci City would have already been destroyed. Feng Yao laughed. To be honest, although I'm under house arrest, it is quite comfortable in prison. I have good food and wine all day long. Most importantly, I am close to my goddess. I'm willing to do that. Therefore, the Mare people asked me for help. I did not want the goddess to be sad because of the loss of too many believers. After all, Blue Charm God is not in a good state. She has been sleeping and needs the believers to provide her with faith and power. So whose side are you on now? Song Su stared coldly at Feng Yao. Feng Yao shrugged. I have the curse of the goddess of love on me, and also her blessing. Of course, I only found out about the latter not long ago thanks to your captain. Understand. I pursued Blue Charm God because of the curse of the goddess of love, but you may not understand. At this moment, I am willing to think of Blue Charm God and help her. I am on Blue Charm God's side. At the same time, I am also on your side. I am a human. We are all humans. Gray, Golden Shin, and Sea Snake are all allies of the Justice Pirates. Naturally, I'm too. I also want to thank you for helping my brothers and sisters. Although Feng Yao said so, his position was still very complicated. He did not know that the gray-clothed man, the golden-jawed man, the sea snake woman, and the others had secretly sided with the dynasty. The Draconid youth changed the topic. Let's talk about that half-plane. We came here. I sneaked into CI City to investigate the enemy situation in order to enter and search for the treasure. Feng Yao laughed out loud. So you're saying that you've also obtained clues to the treasure and came over? My original intention was the same as yours. But when I saw Blue Charm God, I was completely attracted to her. I fell in love with her at first sight. Gray could not help but cough. Third Master, you fell in love at first sight too many times. Clues to the treasure? The Draconid youth, Zhonggu, and Song Su were focused on another point and could not help but frown. The Draconid youth then asked another key question. How did you track me? Chapter 308. Feng Yao's expression darkened. This is the power of the god of love. His curse is not simple. It will guide me. I fell in love with the Blue Charm god, but he chased me away and imprisoned me by the Murlocs. After suppressing the five-headed snake, the curse of the god of love guided me and allowed me to track you down. I understand the meaning of guidance. Dragon Suit Captain, you killed so many Murlocs and have a large number of divine spell imprints on you. If I kill you, I can obtain these imprints and enter the half-plane again to see the Blue Charm god. At this point, Feng Yao sighed deeply. I hate the god of love and know that it is a curse. But the power of the god is so strong. I know that I have been toyed with by the god of love, and I know that this pursuit will result in failure. But every time, I can't help but follow the guidance and do my best. Seeing the helplessness and bleak expression of the former saint-level expert, the historical genius bard, everyone was even more fearful of the god. The Draconid youth was deep in thought. He secretly pondered, maybe Feng Yao's understanding is wrong. The god of love's curse is guiding him not because of the divine spell imprint on me, but because of the pearl foam. The pearl foam originated from the fairy tale of the mermaids. This divine weapon was the only divine weapon of the Blue Charm god. If Feng Yao knew this secret, he would definitely take this divine weapon to please the Blue Charm god. But he was attracted by the divine spell imprint and did not know that the Justice Pirates had this divine weapon. The Draconid youth completely understood the reason. The pearl foam did not guard against the power of the god of love, because the god of love was much stronger than the Blue Charm god. The strength of a god had a lot to do with their divine role. Love was a very broad concept. It included family, friendship, love, doting, benevolence, love, care, and so on. Of course, the human god of love was more inclined toward love. As long as it was a living being, there would be love. The Blue Charm god's divine role was deception and disguise. In terms of concept, its scope was much narrower than love. It also leaned toward the negative. This kind of negative concept was hard to like, and it was naturally unfavorable for the development of believers. After all, Blue Charm God was a foreign god. What was even more fatal was that the clergy involved deception and disguise, as well as the god of theft, god of plunder, god of war, and so on. With so many powerful gods around, Blue Charm God had no room to grow as a latecomer. In addition to the strength of the gods, there was another reason. That is, the use of pearl foam by the Justice Pirates is too simple and shallow. If there was a priest who could use this divine artifact with Blue Charm God's permission, the pearl foam would be able to unleash the true power of a divine artifact. It would not be as useless as it was now. The Draconid youth pondered for a moment. Is there any way to transfer the divine art mark to you? Feng Yao shook his head, a look of helplessness on his face. Unless it's a priest of the Blue Charm religion or above, there's no other way. However, even without the divine spell imprint, we can still enter the demiplane. As far as I know, there are at least 3 ways to enter the demiplane. Feng Yao began to explain his information to everyone. The first way to enter was with the divine spell imprint. With the divine spell imprint, one could be directly sucked into the demiplane when the pillar of heaven erupted to participate in the fish god's test. This method had a 100% chance of success. It was the safest method. The second way was to learn from the Cthulhuism followers. For example, the followers who lived in the temples would pray or hold a ceremony when the pillar of heaven rose. If they were happy with the gods, they might also be pulled into the demiplane. This method was not reliable and had no pattern. Sometimes 50 or 60 followers would be pulled in during the eruption. Other times, none would be pulled in. The third way, which was also the most straightforward way, was to break through directly. Feng Yao slowly explained, the pillar of heaven eruption is divided into 3 stages. The first stage is the rising stage, where the fountain goes from low to high. The second stage is the maintenance stage, where the giant fountain is maintained at a certain height. The third stage is the descent stage, where the fountain goes from high to low, slowly descending until it disappears. In the second stage, the demiplane will be connected to the main world, forming a large gap that ships can pass through. After breaking through this gap, we will be able to reach the demiplane. However, this is also the most dangerous way. Whenever this happens, the holy beast of the blue charm god religion will personally guard the gap and block the door inside the demiplane. When I broke in, it also took a lot of effort. The faces of the pirates of the Justice Pirates suddenly turned white. Holy beast. As the name suggested, this was a holy domain magic beast. According to the information in the CI city, it should be the mother of the Penta, the holy domain 6-headed snake. The 6-headed snake did not only have one child. The Justice Pirates had to deal with the deep-sea hydra family. In fact, the 6-headed snake alone could destroy the entire Justice Pirates. The risk was very high. If possible, the Draconid youth would not take such a risk. But there was no other way. Without the pearl foam cover, they would definitely be finished. Therefore, even if the risk was high, the Justice Pirates had to try. The Draconid youth continued to ask Feng Yao about the demiplane. It had to be said that they were very lucky to be able to get Feng Yao's information in time. According to Feng Yao's description, the demiplane was not big. The main building inside was the Blue Charm Temple. This temple was very large and magnificent. It was like a mountain standing in the sea. Therefore, the Blue Charm Temple was divided into 2 parts. The part above the sea was the temple on the water, and the part below the water was the temple under the water. The 2 parts of the temple were not connected. If one wanted to enter, they would have to go through the various holes in the temple. If we have the divine spell imprint, we will be directly transported to the core area of the temple. If we want to break in, we will have to enter the hole and try our luck. If we are lucky, we will be able to enter the temple. If we are unlucky, we will have to wander around the temple. One more question. Zongo asked, how do we leave the demiplane? Feng Yao shook his head. I was directly expelled by the Blue Charm Goddess, but according to common sense, if we want to leave, we have to go back the way we came. And time is very tight. Once Heaven's Pillar Fountain enters the 3rd stage, the passage between the demiplane and the outside world will disappear. Everyone will be trapped in the demiplane, like a turtle in a jar. For a moment, the faces of the higher-ups of the Justice Pirates were very serious. Chapter 309. The Blue Charm Temple was not easy to break through. It was extremely difficult. After all, it was the main temple of a god, so the defense was very tight. According to Kaze's information, there were not only holy beasts in the main temple, but also a large number of clergy and temple guards. Because the Blue Charm God's clergy was deception, disguise, and had many identities, the believers in the main temple came from a wide range. Not only were there fishmen, but there were also nagas, mermaids, sea elves, and so on. Although the Justice Pirates have been developing rapidly since their establishment, they had been expanding at an astonishing speed and had more than 1,000 people. With many silver elites as the upper echelons and defeating the Gold and Silver Hook brothers, the Justice Pirates have become famous in the Night Spirit Sea. But compared to the defense of the Blue Charm God's main temple, they were still weak. Fortunately, they had reached a temporary agreement with Kaze, so the Justice Pirates temporarily had a gold elite. The hidden danger was that the Bard's position was unclear. It was very likely that he would be instigated by the Blue Charm God when he reached the depths of the temple. Was it a strong arm or a delayed bomb? It was hard to say, but the Justice Pirates had been forced to the edge of the cliff, and their stock of pearl foam had been depleted. He had no choice but to give it a try. The day of the Sky Pillar Sea's eruption was getting closer and closer, and everyone was preparing. In the heart of the Sky Pillar Sea's eye, a frozen land whale was being besieged by the Justice Pirates. The scene was like 10 hyenas surrounding a giant elephant. The giant frozen land whale let out a long whine, and the water around it seemed to listen to its call, stirring up and turning into huge waves. The waves hit the 10 battleships of the Justice Pirates. The ships tilted and firmly resisted the pressure. The waves had a great force, but it had little effect. Seeing this scene, Song-Su felt gratified. Most of the pirate ships had added a layer of crystal glue, which was done by Song-Su himself. Covering the hull with crystal glue was a popular alchemy technique that could greatly increase the ship's resistance to water pressure. The hull of the Justice Pirates has become tougher. Of course, not all ships were covered with a layer of crystal glue. The Justice ship was an exception. This was because the Justice was the Empire's newest ship model. It used the alchemy technology of metal coating. This technique was even better than the crystal face glue. Swish, 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 wave after wave of giant waves came crashing down, seemingly endless. Although the Justice Pirates can resist the waves, the shells fired will be weakened by the layers of waves. Ships that wanted to approach the frozen land whale would also be pushed away by the huge waves. The frozen land whale's magic crystal grew on its forehead. It was sparkling and translucent, just like a dark blue crystal that was exposed. At this moment, the magical crystal was shining brightly, consuming a vast amount of mana to maintain this innate ability that he was born with. Orc Zong-Gu commanded the naval battle. Usually, the Draconid youth would give him authority. This was because Zong-Ji's battlefield commanding ability was much higher than the young man's. Zong-Gu saw the endless waves. He decisively ordered, "All combat ships, dive into the sea." The order was immediately transmitted to all the ships through the magical device, followed by the same flag signal. Thus, there were shouts from all the pirate ships. "Prepare to dive." On the deck, the pirates quickly ran, people moved, and the miscellaneous people all entered the cabin. Most of the people who stayed were extraordinaires. These people skillfully took out potions and drank them all. Magic potion, underwater breathing. The helmsman pulled the lever and shouted, "Let in the water!" The bottom of the ship and the cabin lit up with a magical glow. The hull became transparent. The originally tight deck turned into a void, and a large amount of seawater was sucked into the storage cabin. The pirate ship quickly sank. Soon, the water level reached the deck. The pirates on the deck tied themselves up with ropes, opened their eyes wide, and entered the sea. The underwater breathing potion took effect, and they could breathe freely in the water. Almost at the same time, the Murlocs roared and swarmed over. The pirates waved all kinds of weapons, such as scimitars and rapiers, and fought with the Murlocs. The cannons opened, and the cannons were pushed out one by one. The turbulent seawater could do nothing to these cannons, because the surface of the cannons was also coated with a thick layer of crystal glue. Even between the cannons and the muzzles, there was glue that isolated the seawater. The cannoneers were already ready, and at this moment, they heard the order and fired. The magic power in the magic power pool was injected into the bronze, black, and silver cannons. Boom, boom, boom. The cannons fired, stirring up a terrifying whirlpool. All kinds of fireworks exploded in the seawater, and the Murlocs screamed in the plasma. The scattered iron thorns shot them to death, and they died like hedgehogs. After a few breaths, the Murlocs and sea beasts on the pirate ship were almost completely cleared. Only a small part of the deck was still stubbornly resisting. Zong-Gu ordered again, and the cannons were aimed at the frozen land whale. The frozen land whale stopped its natural ability, dived into the sea, and confronted the justice pirates. Soon, this silver-level sea beast was hit by a lot of cannons and became riddled with wounds. Zhonggu watched the battle with full concentration through the magic device. His eyes flashed. Order all silver-level cannons to be replaced with drill bullets. The drill bullet was shaped like a long spear, and the bullet head was in a spiral shape. Once fired, it would spin rapidly, drill through the seawater, and pierce deep into the frozen land whale's body. Then, the frozen land whale's blood would spurt out along the hollow barrel. In this way, the frozen land whale gradually fell into a disadvantage. Feng Yao had been watching the battle on the Justice Pirates. He was quite surprised by the endless amount of ammunition in the Justice Pirates. I didn't expect that half-beast to have such a commanding talent. The 10 pirate ships under his command advanced and retreated according to the rules, working together to form a seemingly thin encirclement, but in fact, it's very tenacious, firmly trapping the frozen land whale. His aura is very close to the gold level. Once he succeeds, I'm afraid he'll be a headache for the Dragon King. This battle has been decided. The frozen land whale seemed to have a premonition of its own ending, and it launched its final counterattack. Icicles were like a torrential rain, with it, as the center, indiscriminately attacking in all directions. The first to suffer were its vassals, the Murlocs. Then, a large number of icicles pierced through the crystal glue and shot into the hull. The icicles were so fierce that even the metal-coated Justice Pirates were injured. On the gun position, Bayou was burying his head in the cannonball, trying to fill the muzzle. Suddenly, an icicle attacked, almost piercing his head. The crystal glue was broken, and seawater poured in. Bayou didn't panic. He had already drunk a bottle of underwater breathing potion. But the next moment, a Murloc suddenly drilled in through the hole in the crystal glue. His harpoon directly hit Bayou's face. Bayou's pupil shrank. Death suddenly came, but he had no power to resist. The harpoon finally stopped in front of Bayou's eyes. The Murloc in front of Bayou also showed a look of horror. Soon after, the fishman was dragged out with a whoosh. With a crisp crack, the bronze-level Murloc warrior was broken in the opposite direction, dying tragically on the spot. Roar! Guru, 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 guru. Bayou heard the big guys roar again, but the roar stopped abruptly. Then came the sound of the ladder being filled with seawater. He's the one who saved me. Bayou instantly understood who her savior was. This was only a corner of the battlefield. The real decisive battle had begun. Song Su, Zhonggu, Feng Yao, and the others' gazes were all focused on the young Murloc. Since the secret of him being able to mutate into a Murloc was exposed, the young man might as well mutate in front of everyone and kill his way to the frozen land whale in his Murloc form. The young man held 2 swords in his hands, used Dance of the Red Scales, and stepped on the waves, making him extraordinarily agile. The frozen land whale had low intelligence and a huge body. Its flesh and blood were torn apart by his swords, and it kept howling. So the dragon suit captain's true identity isn't a dragon man. He's actually a droll. The dragon man is just one of his forms. The captain is a dual cultivator. No wonder the lion flag submitted to him. Under the young man's secret arrangement, the answer and truth quickly spread among the pirates. Feng Yao's gaze was focused on the young Murloc. He deeply felt the power of the young man's swordsmanship. It's just that the gold-level sea monster never appeared. Feng Yao was still brooding about the mysterious sea monster that almost killed him. But during these days in the Justice Pirates, he still couldn't find any information about the sea monster. He understood that this should be the dragon suit's hidden trump card. This guy is very shrewd. The identity of the droll is really exposed now. No, maybe he's not a droll. The reason why he can transform into 2 forms may be flesh and blood magic, or the blessing of the evil god. Feng Yao's heart suddenly surged with a touch of horror. The next moment, he saw the young Murloc suddenly turn back into a dragon man and then pull out a gun from his waist. After the gun was aimed at the frozen land whale under the young man's feet, the young man immediately pulled the trigger. Roar! The shadow of the fire dragon flashed, and the roar spread throughout the battlefield. The bullet condensed from fire elements shot into the skull of the frozen land whale. And then there was a boom, and an explosion occurred. Half of the frozen land whale's head was directly blown up, and the turbulent blood rushed everywhere, drowning the young man's figure in an instant. What weapon is that? I just felt a trace of a legendary level aura. Feng Yao's expression changed, and his heart was shaken. Chapter 310. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The waves surged, and a huge whirlpool formed on the surface of the sea. Visible to the naked eye, the seawater in the sky pillars' eye area flowed faster and faster. The closer it was to the center of the eye, the more turbulent the current was, and it sunk like a funnel. Usually, this funnel was not very obvious, but now the center of the eye was at least 500 to 600 meters lower than the normal sea level. In order to avoid being swept in by the turbulent waves, many sea creatures began to migrate out a week ago. This formed a temporary sea beast tide. The frozen land whale that the Justice pirates encountered 3 days ago was part of the beast tide. Now, the Justice pirates' 10 pirate ships and a supply ship were all at the periphery of the eye. Today was the day of the sky pillar's rise. The Draconid youth, half-beast Zhonggu, Song Su, Ash, Feng Yao, and others were all standing on the deck or floating in the air to look into the distance. The eye of the ocean had sunk to the extreme, like a fully drawn bowstring or a spring that had been compressed to the extreme that had suddenly been released. Rumble. Amidst the deafening rumble, a wave of water soared into the sky from the center of the eye of the sea. The waves were surging and massive, as if a white hill had emerged from the sea. It rose higher and higher, and in a few breaths, it climbed to a height of tens of meters. 5 or 6 minutes later, the wave rose to a height of 300 to 400 meters, but because of the large radius, it still gave people a feeling of sturdiness. On the pirate ship, many people were amazed. The sky pillar's eyes finally erupted. The youth retracted his gaze. In the following days, the water column would continue to rise. Although the rise would be slower and slower, it would at least exceed 2,000 meters by tonight. According to Feng Yao's information, this was only the first stage of the sky pillar's eye eruption, and they could only enter the half-plane in the second stage. The Draconid youth came to the combat room, closed the door, turned on a magic device, and then sat on the floor. He did not train his chi, but began to meditate. Meditation was the way for mages to cultivate. The meditation technique that the youth was cultivating now was from Song Su and was very ordinary. As a mage, Song Su not only had the meditation technique of the undead school, but also collected many meditation techniques of other schools. This was his third time cultivating. Quantitative change led to qualitative change. A subtle change occurred in the youth's body. The mana pool was finally opened. The young man closed his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. At this moment, a faint feeling of joy spread through his heart. In this way, his mage cultivation could be considered to have been initiated, and he had his own personal mana pool. Of course, the capacity of this mana pool was very small. Although he had a silver life rating, he had only just begun to cultivate as a mage. The next step was to accumulate magic power. His spirit spread out and filled the entire combat training room, capturing the fire elements in the air. Under the control of his mind, the fire elements slowly entered his body. Finally, little by little, like fireflies, they converged into the mana pool. Little by little, a thin layer of fire magic power gradually appeared in his magic power pool. This had something to do with his Fire Dragon King bloodline, as well as his fire-type meditation technique. The Draconid youth's aura gradually changed. On the basis of battle chi, a trace of magic power was added. As time passed, the aura of this strand of magic power became more and more obvious until it reached its limit. The mana pool is full. The Draconid youth slowly opened his eyes and ended his meditation. Although the youth had always focused on battle chi, he knew from experience that the speed at which his magic power was accumulated was already quite fast. The meditation technique is very ordinary, and the cultivation environment is also very poor. It's mainly because of the Fire Dragon King bloodline. The youth wanted to collect fire elements and convert them into magic power, but the sea was filled with water elements, and fire elements were relatively rare. This was also a combat training room, not a meditation training room. Although there was a magic device, it only blocked the movements in the room from the outside. Generally speaking, when mages meditated, they would actively adjust the external environment. The higher the concentration of the corresponding elements in the external environment, the more beneficial it would be for cultivation. Therefore, mages would often use elemental crystals to set up formations to actively increase the concentration of the elements in the surrounding environment. The efficiency of a mage's cultivation in a mage tower was more than 10 times that without a tower. The Fire Dragon King bloodline was indeed a legendary bloodline. Whether it was cultivating battle chi or magic, it had great potential. In fact, the Fire Dragon royal bloodline in the blood core is not complete. It's only in an incomplete state. In this world, aptitude was the most important factor in cultivation. It was the same even for clergymen. Those who could bear more divine power were those with better aptitudes. In fact, the dragon youth had anticipated the prospects of his cultivation of magic, but he had only started to cultivate it now. Cultivating both magic and martial arts was a gimmick, but it was actually very difficult. For example, balancing battle chi and magic power so that they could coexist harmoniously. Another example was adjusting energy and time and how to allocate resources for both aspects of cultivation. If possible, the dragon youth did not want to cultivate both magic and martial arts, because he knew that his time, energy, and resources were limited, and the external environment was not good either. It was better to focus on battle chi than to cultivate magic. But the situation forced him to start cultivating magic. The main reason was to protect the blood core. Being misunderstood as drool was the situation that the youth wanted to see. Drool was a magic type. It was impossible for the youth not to have magic waves. Secondly, in the long run, cultivating both magic and martial arts would be the best way to bring out the advantages of the blood core. Finally, there was another reason, and that was this gun, Dragon's Kiss. This gun had been appraised by Tsang Su, Fat Tongue, and the others, and confirmed that it was the real deal. It was a legendary short-handle gun. This made Fat Tongue sigh at the youth's foresight. Legendary weapons were very rare. He did not expect the youth to pick one up so casually. Speaking of which, this gun was the greatest reward of the dragon youth's exploration of the seabed. But the Dragon's Kiss gun was not undamaged. All equipment needed maintenance, and for legendary weapons, maintenance was sometimes even more demanding and expensive. Currently, the Dragon's Kiss gun could only unleash gold-level attacks. The Dragon Youth had already tested it when he was dealing with the frozen land whale. Every legendary equipment had its own legendary story. Dragon's Kiss was no exception. This famous gun was born at the end of the barbaric dragon era. In this era, the barbarians were the strongest overlords in the world. The barbarians controlled the dragon race and dominated the world, suppressing the other races until they could not breathe. The barbarian warships wreaked havoc on the coastlines of every continent, dealing a heavy blow to the people of every race. No one could stop them. The first pirate throne was created by the barbarians. At the end of the barbaric dragon era, the conflict between the barbarians and the dragon race was irreconcilable, and the alliance between the two sides was torn apart. The legendary barbarian hero, Blood Ash, was a hybrid between the barbarians and the dragon race. His father was a barbarian, and his mother was a dragon. Both of them held high positions. But at his birthday banquet, the dragon race plotted against him and killed many important barbarians who were present. His father was very strong, so his mother used him as a hostage to threaten his father. His father was seriously injured and on the verge of death in order to protect him. At the critical moment, the barbarians risked their lives to protect him and fought their way out. Blood Ash escaped with his life, and the few barbarians returned to the tribe. However, his father died in his arms due to his heavy injuries. Blood Ash was extremely sorrowful. He burned his father, mixed his ashes with his blood, and smeared it all over his body. From then on, Blood Ash vowed to take revenge. He was extremely talented and received great support from the barbarians. He lived up to everyone's expectations and grew into a powerful extraordinaire, cultivating both magic and martial arts. He killed many dragon race experts, and the dragon race had no choice but to set traps and use tricks. His mother pretended to be a fugitive from the dragon race and was hunted down by her own race. She told Blood Ash that killing his father was an illusion, and there was a deep misunderstanding. Blood Ash was sentimental and was deceived by the carefully forged evidence. He chose to believe it for the time being and wanted to investigate. In the end, he fell into the dragon race's trap. The barbarians quickly sent experts to rescue Blood Ash. Blood Ash's teacher died in battle. Blood Ash was filled with grief and regret. He killed his mother with his own hands and brought her dragon body to the dwarf tribe. The dwarf king personally used the dragon corpse to create the fire gun dragon's kiss. Only those with the bloodlines of the barbarians and the dragon race were qualified to use this fire gun. There were no disadvantages for the barbarians to use it, but it would consume fire elemental crystals and fighting energy. When the dragon race used it, in addition to consuming their own fighting energy or magic power, it would also reduce the density of their dragon blood. Blood Ash hated the dragon race bloodline in his body for the rest of his life and wanted to get rid of it. However, it was extremely difficult to get rid of a part of the bloodline. The Dwarf King gathered all the capable craftsmen in the tribe and came up with the blueprint of the fire gun dragon's kiss. After Blood Ash obtained the dragon's kiss, he went on a killing spree. On the tragic battlefield, he gradually transformed himself into a complete barbarian. In the end, he became a famous hero in the history of the barbarians. The dragon's kiss also became one of his symbols. The young dragon person observed the fire gun dragon's kiss in his hand. In general, this fire gun has a lot of restrictions. However, for me, consuming dragon blood is not a problem. He had already tested it. When he used this fire gun in his dragon person state, the density of dragon blood in his body would indeed decrease a lot. However, when he used the blood core again, he could quickly recover to his previous peak. If this adventure succeeds, I'll really have to recruit an alchemist next. Without an experienced alchemist, my dragon's kiss can't be repaired. This was a bit far-fetched. The young man quickly put away his overflowing thoughts. For now, he still had to prioritize the Blue Charm Temple. Chapter 3:11. Who am I? The brown-scaled Murloc opened his eyes. What he saw was a ceiling made of metal. He looked around and found himself lying on a thin metal bed. Other than that, there was nothing else in the room. Where am I? Who am I? When the brown-scaled Murloc asked this question, he couldn't help but hold his head with both hands, feeling an intense pain that penetrated deep into his soul. I remember now. My name is He. Why is it called this name? Because when I laugh, I make a he sound. Yes, that's right. I'm a black-scaled Murloc He. But why? Why are my fish scales brown? No. All of this is wrong. Bang! With a soft sound, the brown-scaled Murloc's head exploded. In an instant, the floor, walls, and ceiling of the metal room were filled with Murloc's brain matter and blood. Test subject 213 has failed. Sang Su's voice was cold, his face expressionless. He stood on the other side of the wall, using his X-ray vision spell to observe the Murloc's condition, witnessing the entire process of his self-destruction. Sang Su wasn't discouraged at all. Instead, he searched for the reason of the experiment's failure. He channeled his mana, activating the undead spell formation that he had set up, absorbing the Murloc's soul into the space of the spell formation. The Murloc's soul let out a tragic cry, finally disappearing into nothingness. And Sang Su obtained a large amount of memories. The most important ones were the memories before the Murloc's self-destruction. He found a reason. In the memories I gave him, his identity was the brown-scaled Murloc Gagaga, but he remembered that his name was He, and even thought that he was a black-scaled Murloc. But He, that's not his original name. Song Su turned around, came to a metal table, and opened the box on the table. Once this metal box was opened, the mechanical structure inside would change, forming a three-tiered staircase layout. Hundreds of memory crystals were neatly arranged on the 3 flights of stairs. Song Su easily picked out the test subject's memory crystal. He took the memory crystal and walked a few steps to the side, facing a magic device that was as tall as a person. It was the memory crystal manufacturing device. Song Su inserted the memory crystal into one of the grooves in the magic device and infused it with magic power. The memory crystal device began to flicker, transforming into a blurry image. What appeared in the light was the Murloc experimental subject's memories. Quickly replaying the memory, Song Su found the source of the He. It turned out that when this fishman was young, he had encountered a black-scaled fishman expert and was saved by him. He didn't know the other party's name, but the strange sound of the other party's laughter had left a deep impression on him. Perhaps subconsciously, he wants to become a Murloc like his savior. At this moment, footsteps could be heard outside the door. Song Su immediately recognized that it was the young man and took the initiative to open the door. "Old scholar, I heard that you've made some progress?" The young man asked with a smile. He was now in human form, and in deep-sea monster fish where there were no outsiders, he did not need to consume mana to maintain his mutation. "Yes, sir." Song Su bowed slightly. "My research on the memory crystal has yielded results. Of course, this is also due to the magic book seized from the underwater chamber." The young man's eyes lit up. "So, you can become a blasphemy priest? If there was a blasphemy priest in the Justice Pirates, then the chances of stealing divine power would be greater. In theory, I've studied it thoroughly, and now there's only one key experiment left." Song Su said, "This is why I invited you to preside over this experiment, because I'm the experimental subject." The young man's expression changed slightly. "Why do you have to do it yourself? It's indeed a bit risky." Song Su sighed, "But we have to do it. First, there's no other suitable candidate among the survivors of Monster Island except for me. It's troublesome to choose someone other than the survivors. Second, I need to experience it myself to grasp the key. Third, I have to forcibly control others to conduct the experiment. I've done it many times and failed. The extraction of the memory crystal requires the participant to actively contribute. If an external force forcibly extracts it, it's easy to cause failure. Even if it succeeds, the extracted memory will be chaotic or broken. This is my main memory. Please keep it safe." Song Su walked to another metal box, opened it, and took out a memory crystal stored in it. "Next, I'll enter the next room and try to become a blasphemy priest. First, I'll manipulate the memory crystal device and store all my memories in a memory crystal. This way, my memory will be cleared. Then, I'll fall into a state of sleep, and I'll ask you to instill another memory into me." Speaking of this, Song Su took out another memory crystal from the metal box. The memory stored in this memory crystal is about the religious memory of the fish god believers. After my modifications, the logic is very smooth and there are no mistakes. Then, please isolate me and observe my situation through the magic device. If I hold my head and am in so much pain that I want to die, please make a move in time and knock me out. However, the probability of this happening is very small. If the experiment succeeds, I'll completely become a believer of the fish god and have no doubts about myself or my memories. 3 hours after I wake up, if my condition is stable, please activate the magic device and knock me out. Then, use the memory crystal I gave you to instill the memories in it into me." The young man listened carefully to Song Su's words and memorized them in his heart. He repeated it a few more times and received the correct confirmation from Song Su. Then, the two of them began to move. Song Su opened the cabin door of the next room. The blood and broken corpses of the Murlocs scattered everywhere inside shocked the young man. Song Su pointed at the Murlocs' corpses and explained, This is why I want to erase all my memories. The modification of memories is very exquisite. My understanding of it is very shallow. Sometimes, even though all the memories related to the identity have been deleted, the experimental subjects still won't accept the identity instilled in them. Due to various reasons, their self-awareness will deviate uncontrollably and unimaginably. If the experiment fails, or something unexpected happens, Sang-Soo hesitated for a moment. If it's possible, I would like to ask you to pass my cultivation notes to that guy. Understood. The young man nodded. The experiment began. According to Sang-Soo's instructions, the young man strictly carried out the steps in an orderly manner. Sang-Soo, who was implanted with a new memory, slowly woke up. Who am I? I am Igu. I am a mage, black iron rank, but I believe in the fish god. Yes, I'm a member of the evil cult. I was imprisoned. I don't know who the enemy is at all. I was ambushed. The young man calmly observed, watching Sang-Soo try to escape, but he couldn't open the anti-magic shackles on his body. The anti-magic shackles produced by the war dealers were of good quality. Sang-Soo tried hundreds of times without success. He broke down and began to pray to the fish god again and again. 3 hours later, the young man knocked Sang-Soo unconscious and once again injected his original memories. Sang-Soo woke up again. Sir, we did it. Even after being modified by undead magic, he still showed an excited expression. I have a question. The young man frowned. How did that silver rank mage in New Moon Village become the blasphemy shaman? If we use our method, how will he recover his true identity afterwards? Sang-Soo answered, there might be 2 methods. The first, he wasn't alone, he had a partner. But I'm more inclined to the second. He set up special measures to awaken him. He might have modified the memory crystal and forged it as his personal item. When a certain condition is met, this item will activate and instill his memories. The young man continued to think, so we might be able to get rid of him before he awakens his true identity. There is such a possibility. But how do we find him? Sang-Soo asked. It's simple. When he mixed into the evil cult, he was an ordinary person. As long as we find the silver rank mage among the evil cult, it's most likely him. But Sang-Soo shook his head. This necromancer hid his true power. I don't know what method he used. But since he has the confidence to blaspheme the blue charm god, it proves that he is very confident in his disguise. We might not be able to find him. Your analysis is very reasonable. The young man nodded and sighed helplessly. This was an unstable factor. When he was making a ruckus in CI City, the young Murloc had the idea of finding this necromancer, but he couldn't find him. I hope he won't be a hindrance in our trip to the temple. While the young man was thinking, the tower spirit's warning suddenly sounded. There was something wrong on the sea. The young man mutated into a dragonoid and sneaked back to the Justice with Sang-Soo. The Justice pirates were in a tense confrontation with a team of sea giants. The leading sea giant was a gold rank, and there were as many as 6 silver rank sea giants in the team. Chapter 312. On the sea, the 10 battleships and a supply ship of the Justice pirates were confronting a small team of sea giants. The young man stepped on the ship's railing and looked into the distance. He frowned at first glance. Sea giants were huge, and their physical fitness was far superior to humans. They often thought that a bronze-level sea giant could easily overturn a fan ship. Previously, the Justice pirates had also eliminated sea giants. There was only one sea giant before, which made the entire Justice pirates feel that it was difficult. Now, not only were there 7 sea giants, but they were very strong. 6 were silver level, and 1 was gold. If they really fought, the Justice pirates' warships could only fight from a distance. Once the sea giants approached, the hull would be easily torn apart. Only the Justice pirates and other ships had metal coatings and could resist for a while. What made the young man feel more pressure was that these sea giants were obviously well equipped. The sea giant he killed before was almost naked. Its upper body was covered with a layer of fishing net. The fishing net was tied with shells as armor. The craftsmanship was quite simple. Its waist was covered with a yellowed canvas. Even his weapon was just an anchor that he had picked up. But this group of sea giants was obviously different. First of all, they were covered with a huge frozen whale skin. This layer of whale skin itself was a superior defensive material. The layer of whale skin on their bodies was obviously processed by magic. It was not only on their heads, but also draped over their shoulders and then covered the upper half of their backs. The gold-level sea giant in the lead wore a pair of huge metal gloves. The female silver-level sea giant, who was probably the deputy leader, had a star-shaped pendant the size of a ship's rudder on her huge chest. It was a magic pendant, exuding a silver-level aura. Obviously, it was a casting tool. The rest of the silver-level sea giants were also armed with weapons. Some were swords, some were harpoons. Even the ship's anchors were all black, iron-level weapons. Who are they? Where are they from? The Draconid youth asked. Lonzeo looked dignified. They said they're from the liquid-feeding tribe. The leader is called Fist Baba. His sister, the one standing on his right, is called Chest Star. This group is mainly looking for trouble with Feng Yao-sama. The Draconid youth raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Feng Yao beside him. Feng Yao sighed. I once chased after the Chest Star. Everyone opened their eyes wide, and they couldn't help but size up the female sea giant that stood in front of them. Her entire body was green, her nostrils were large, and her chest was like a hill. Cupid's curse? The Draconid youth asked. Feng Yao's eyes widened like everyone else's. What else? Song Su frowned. Even if he is pursuing her, why does he look like he hates her so much? Feng Yao sighed again and explained, I approached the Chestnut Star as a suitor. At that time, I was still a Saint Realm and was invited to a banquet by the old patriarch of the Flowing Feeder tribe. Chestar already had a sweetheart at that time, but I didn't know. Even the sea giants of the Flowing Feeding tribe hid this information from me and allowed me to stay in the tribe as a guest. I've done a lot of things in order to pursue the Chestar. I eradicated the saint-level sea monsters for them, drove away the dangerous sharks, and helped them establish trade relations with the human caravans. After all, Feng Yao was a saint, and only the old chief of the Flowing Feeder tribe was a saint. Feng Yao was of great value. But even after doing so many things, Chestar still treated me perfunctorily and dealt with the situation. I knew that she and the other sea giants of the Flowing Feeder tribe wanted to use me, but my heart was filled with longing for love, and I was willing to sacrifice selflessly. I hoped that one day she would see my sacrifice and change her mind. My love for her grew deeper and deeper, and I couldn't control myself. But I still had a clear mind. My mind kept telling me the cruel truth, but I still worked for the Flowing Feeder tribe. Every day, I could see Chestar a few times, and I would feel extremely satisfied. One day, I received the guidance of the Cupid's curse, and secretly came to a hidden oceanic trench. There, I accidentally discovered that Chestar was having a secret rendezvous with a sea giant. I didn't know that she had a sweetheart. I was very angry at that time, and attacked in anger. Chestar and her sweetheart worked together to resist me. Seeing this, I was even angrier and accidentally killed her sweetheart. The sea giant that died in my hands was the young patriarch of the Forage tribe. The Forage tribe had always been close to the Flowing Feeder tribe, and they were strong allies. The patriarch of the Forage tribe was also a saint. His son was killed, and the patriarch of the Forage tribe personally took action and chose to take revenge. Of course, the Flowing Feeder tribe wouldn't stand on my side, and chose to join forces with the Forage tribe of the same race. I was defeated and fled in a sorry state. For a period of time, I lived a life worse than death. Every day, I risked going near the Flowing Feeder tribe just to see Chestar from afar. So that's how it is. The Dragonoid youth and the others were enlightened. At the same time, on the sea giant side. Brother, I found the enemy. It's that Feng Yao. Chestar glared at the righteous ship. Her eyes were about to spit fire. He seems to be injured and only has the aura of a gold rank. Quan Ba shook his head and said in a muffled voice, Don't complicate things. This time, we came to ask for help from the fish god behind the Oceanite city. We want to enter the half-plane. Chess Star said unwillingly. These humans must have bad intentions. If we kill them, we will be showing goodwill to the Ocean Eye City and the fish god. Oof. Quan Ba frowned. Calm down, Chess Star. Don't let the tide of anger drown your mind. This group of people is not easy to deal with. Is Feng Yao really injured? Back then, he was ambushed, attacked by his father and the Forage tribe's leader, but he was able to escape unscathed. Maybe he deliberately pretended to be like this to lure us into the encirclement of these pirate ships. The humans are too cunning, and even if he really has them, there are at least 4 silver ranks on these ships. This is not counting their strange weapons and equipment. If we fight, we will definitely have casualties. We are the backbone of the tribe. If we have too many casualties, what will happen to the tribe? Chess Star gritted her teeth. Brother, you are right. After a confrontation, the sea giant did not attack, but took the initiative to retreat away from the righteous pirates. The dragonoid youth and the others were relieved. It seems that the other side also has scruples. A few days later, the righteous pirates were in a tense confrontation with a huge tree ship. The pirate flag on the tree ship was flying high, and in the middle of the flag was a skull carved on a tree trunk. The other side is the Mother Tree Pirates. All of them are Ents, and the leader is a sacred realm sycamore Ent, known as Ant. The entire tree ship is actually Ant's body. Song Su said in a heavy tone, Don't worry, the leader of the Mother Tree Pirates. Ant is in a long sleep and rarely wakes up. Feng Yao's tone was bleak, and his expression was complicated. And on the opposite side of the tree ship, Ant stood, looking over with a complicated expression. Feng Yao, I didn't expect to finally find a heartless man like you. The dragonoid youth and the others stared at Feng Yao. Feng Yao shook his head and sighed, his tone bitter. Because of the love god's curse, I fell in love with a tree. Everyone, is it even possible? Bai was shocked. Feng Yao looked up and sighed. I was too naive back then. I thought that an ordinary tree would accept my love for it. I thought that the love god's curse would end because of this. I stayed with the tree day and night, removing insects, pruning branches, and collecting magic beast poop to fertilize it. I watched it grow strong, sprouting new buds in spring, leafy branches in summer, withered leaves in autumn and winter, and in winter. Okay, can you get to the point? The dragonoid youth couldn't help but interrupt. Cough, cough, sorry, I'm a bard. Feng Yao continued. One day I met a droll. He was an ant, and he was very touched by my care for a tree. He proposed to transform the tree into an ant with wisdom. He didn't want to see lovers unable to get married. I was very happy, and I agreed without thinking. So, the tree was transformed into Huaya, who is now the deputy leader of the Mother Tree Pirates. Everyone came to a sudden realization, and a new question popped up. Did Huaya reject you? No. Feng Yao shook his head. Her life underwent a qualitative change, and after becoming an ant, she accepted me after Master Drool's explanation. She had memories, and she knew that someone had been taking care of her. But she didn't know it was me, because all along, she was just a tree without eyes. She couldn't see my appearance. Any life has feelings. Even after so many years, I still remember the scene at that time. That was when I was very nervous, and terrified. I almost thought that she would reject me. Because of the love god's curse, I suffered countless ruthless rejections. But that time was different. She said to me, I don't know if what Master Drool, said is true, but I have my way of confirming it. Then she stretched out her branches, led my hand, and put my palm on her trunk. Then she smiled. It's this feeling, this warm feeling. Yes, my love. Thank you for your care. You love me, and I love you. I was so touched that tears fell from my eyes. Great happiness hit my heart, and I almost knelt on the ground and roared to the sky. But the next moment, my tears stopped. The love god's curse was activated, and it no longer made me fall in love with her. In an instant, I lost all my love for Huaya. Thinking about it, it's normal. Who would fall in love with a tree? Everyone was silent. Many people looked at the depressed Feng Yao and couldn't help but show sympathy. Feng Yao, come here. On the tree boat, Aunt Huaya shouted. "Tell me clearly, why did you leave me? We were so sweet. When I was a tree, no matter the season, you would hug me, kiss, rub, and shake my body. Even winter was no exception. You defiled me, but left me. Today, I will make you pay the price." Everyone stared at Feng Yao again, their eyes like torches. Feng Yao's face turned red. "I was too deep, too deep." "You can do that," Baya exclaimed again, as if a window of life had been opened. Chapter 313. "Heartless man, I'm coming." Huaya shouted as the tree ship under her feet slowly moved and rushed towards the Justice Pirates. The members of the Justice Pirates were restless. The Mother Tree Pirates were very famous and had Sanctuary-level combat power. Compared to them, the Justice Pirates were just a little brother. Firebeard's third head. "This is your romantic debt," Zonga said to Feng Yao impolitely. Feng Yao looked embarrassed and was about to speak. At this time, the Draconid youth reached out and patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry, you are now an ally of the Justice Pirates. We won't sit back and do nothing." Feng Yao's tone was heavy as he shook his head. "If my strength was still there, I wouldn't be afraid of them. But now I'm only a gold level. I'll go and explain to Huaya. I believe she won't kill me. You can go." Third Master, covered in gray, shouted. Feng Yao laughed. "I took the initiative. It's not a violation of the covenant." At the critical moment, he showed his responsibility. "It hasn't reached that point yet." The Draconid youth smiled. Feng Yao was the only gold-level powerhouse he could rely on, and he was also a mage. He wasn't willing to give up. Moreover, if he couldn't win, he could retreat. Immediately, the Draconid youth ordered everyone to retreat at full speed. The ants on the tree ship glared. Huaya kept shouting, "Don't run." "You want to run again? What else can you do besides run?" "Traitor, stop right there. Come back." The other ants on the tree ship were also very angry. They all wanted to avenge Huaya and teach Feng Yao an unforgettable lesson. But the tree ship was very slow. The distance between them and the Justice Pirates was getting farther and farther. Unless the Mother Tree Pirate Captain's aunt woke up, the tree ship itself would be her body. In this way, the tree ship would burst out with extremely fast speed and quickly catch up with the Justice Pirates. But the ants slept all year round and would only wake up when there was great danger. Therefore, the tree ship could only watch the Justice Pirates go away. "I don't believe that I can't catch you in my life." Huaya waved her branch arms and swore. Days passed, and Heaven's pillar continued to rise, approaching the highest point. The Heavenly Pillar's sea fountain was stabilizing, but the situation in the sea was becoming more and more complicated. After the Sea Giant Squad and the Mother Tree Pirates, many forces and gangs came. Under the command of the boy, the Justice Pirates retreated to the edge of the sea and waited for the opportunity. Regarding this, the youth was half worried and half happy. What is worrying is that the situation is complicated. Feng Yao attracts hatred, and the strength of the Justice Pirates is not outstanding. He was happy because many forces had received news of the treasure and came here, wanting to break into the demiplane. This way, the Justice Pirates would not need to face the Holy Beast alone, as well as the heavily guarded Blue Charm Shrine. While waiting, the Gold Chin and the Sea Snake Lady's fleet successfully met up with the Dragon Person teenager. Before the boy commanded the Justice Pirates to act alone, he wanted to hide his secret as much as possible. However, ever since the young man received the information and understood that his side was weak, he gathered the Golden Chin and the Sea Snake Lady once again, doing his best to increase his own strength. With their addition, the number of silver rankers on the side of the Justice Pirates increased to 8, including the Silver Sea Snake. What was worth mentioning was that the big guy had cultivated the Royal Land Battle Chi technique and had accumulated enough energy. Naturally, he had risen to the level of Black Iron. Finally, the day that the youth had been waiting for had arrived. The pillar of heaven towered into the clouds, the tides surged, and the mist in the sky was monstrous, covering the sky and the sun. The eruption of the pillar of heaven had officially entered the second stage. The demi-plane and the outside world were stable, and people could enter and exit standing on the side of the ship and looking out in the huge white fountain. The shadow of the temple in the demiplane vaguely seeped out. Feng Yao's eyes flashed. "My goddess, I'm coming. I'm going to see you again." He cannot wait to say, "Just rush in, and you can enter the demiplane." However, the next moment, a huge beast shadow like a mountain blocked the shadow of the temple. It had 6 snake heads, and the snake roar was so loud that even the roar of the pillar of heaven's sea could not cover it. 6-headed snake. The holy beast of the Blue Charm Shrine blocked the passage. For a moment, many of the groups that were ready to move restrained themselves and looked at each other, hoping that someone else would take the lead. After waiting for a while, one group took the lead. It was the team of sea giants. The sea giants swam to the front of the Pillar of Heaven, and the leader, Fistba, floated out of the sea. The 6-headed snake could also see the movements of the sea giants through the Pillar of Heaven. Its roar suddenly became louder, and the warning was very obvious. Fistba bowed slightly to the 6-headed snake. After saluting, he took out a huge conch from his arms. "Holy beast, I came with a token to worship the great fish god and ask for help. Please make way and allow me to continue." Fistba said. The 6 heads of the 6-headed snake approached and looked at them through the Pillar of Heaven's water curtain for a while. Then the snake raised its neck and looked down at the sea giants, letting out a roar. When the sea giants heard the snake's roar, joy appeared on their faces. The holy beast recognized the token and moved sideways slightly, making way for them. Under the gaze of many people, the sea giants passed through the Pillar of Heaven's water curtain and entered the demiplane. Their figures were immediately covered by the 6-headed snake. "These sea giants actually have tokens. They went in. Let's go too." "That's right. We, the Mother Tree Pirates, don't need to be afraid of a demonic beast, even if it is a sacred domain." Many treants on the tree boats became restless and wanted to set off immediately. Huai shook her head. "No, let our captain sleep more. She just fell asleep. If we wake her up now, her temper will be very bad. We don't need to be so anxious. The barbarians will not be able to endure it. They're always lacking in patience." Huai placed her hopes on the barbarians. The barbarians' ship appeared after the Mother Tree Pirates. They only had one ship. The width of the ship was similar to the Justice ship, but it was at least twice as long. Although the ship had sails, the main driving force was not the sails, but the oars. The oars were very long, densely packed, and extended out from the sides of the ship and into the sea. The oars were arranged in 2 layers. It could be seen that the bottom deck and the middle deck had a large number of oarsmen. And at the bow and stern of the ship, there were dragon heads. This was the tradition of the barbarians, and also the characteristic of their ships. After waiting for a while, the barbarian ship started moving. Hundreds of oars moved in unison and slowly moved. A barbarian man with a bare upper body stood at the bow of the ship. His entire body was filled with sturdy muscles. His face was square and his expression was firm. The aura on his body was that of a sacred domain. The barbarian ship became faster and faster. With an unyielding attitude, they rushed towards the heavenly pillar. The sacred beast hissed again, issuing a stern warning. The barbarian man snorted, "I have the mission of God on me. Let me pass." The 6-headed snake moved its body, completely blocking the passage. The barbarian man snorted and suddenly rushed out of the dragon-head ship. Like a cannonball, he took the lead and killed his way into the half-plane. Boom, boom, boom. He and the sacred beast clashed, causing deafening explosions. Battle chi exploded. Lightning and venom shot in all directions. The terrifying might caused the spectators to feel a chill in their hearts. The 6-headed snake hissed again, but this time it revealed a sense of pain. Everyone was shocked. The battle had only lasted for a few minutes, but the 6-headed snake was already at a disadvantage. The barbarian man was very strong. He displayed extraordinary battle strength. The 6-headed snake opened its mouth, spitting out venom, lightning, torrents, flames, and other things from its 6 heads. It was going all out. The barbarian man shouted loudly and opened his sacred domain. For a moment, Wind and snow fluttered. Hailstones were like fists, thousands of hailstones enveloping the six-headed snake. The six-headed snake was beaten black and blue. It turned around and fled. The barbarian man chased after it, his killing intent clear. Under the dumbfounded gazes of everyone, the barbarian man and the six-headed snake disappeared from the temple. Who are these barbarians? That sacred domain's battle strength is amazing. His identity is definitely not simple. Going quickly, the sacred beast has been beaten away by him. There is no obstruction ahead. Everyone was pleasantly surprised and moved out. They were wary of each other and entered the heavenly pillar's water curtain in batches. It was actually orderly. The Justice Pirates waited until the Mother Tree Pirates entered before officially setting off. The youth ordered the supply ship to stay outside. He took the remaining 10 warships, as well as the hidden deep-sea monster fish, and crashed into the heavenly pillar, entering the half-plane. Chapter 3:14. All 10 ships have entered. The Draconid youth exhaled. The star was unexpectedly smooth. He had thought that there would be a battle, and losing a few ships was very likely. After entering the half-plane, there was still the roar of the sky pillar sea erupting. But it was peaceful in front of him. There was no wind, and the blue water surface was as smooth as a mirror. There were no other buildings. There was only a huge temple that attracted everyone's attention. Just like Feng Yao had said, this dark blue divine palace was made of mysterious metal, and its lines were straight and tough. It stood on the surface of the sea, looking very majestic. Boom, boom, boom. There was a roar from the temple, mixed with the hiss of the six-headed snake. It was obvious that the barbarian saint had chased the six-headed snake into the temple and was still fighting. Everyone was shocked. This barbarian was simply too ferocious. The barbarian warships also sounded with war drums and melodious horns. The barbarians' morale was high. Whether it was the Justice Pirates or the Mother Tree Pirates, they had all benefited from the barbarians. Who exactly were they? No one knew. There were no flags or symbols on the barbarians' ships. Their actions were very high profile, but they did not show any signs of wanting to show their identity. The Draconid youth could not help but recall what the barbarian had said. He had the mission of God. Could it be that he was an oracle? After thinking about it, the Draconid youth suddenly felt that it was no wonder that the barbarian was so arrogant and confident. Although the blue charm god was in a bad state and had fallen into a deep sleep, this was her main temple. Once he awoke, or the incarnation of God, he could go on a rampage and wipe out everyone who invaded the demiplane. If a holy beast was killed, at the moment of its death, it could awaken the angry blue charm god. But the barbarian was not afraid at all. Perhaps it was because he was an oracle and had the attention of the barbarian god. He could provide support at any time. After all, this was a half-plane and not a god's kingdom. If they were in a god's kingdom, the divine power and even the gaze of the other gods would not be able to enter. The barbarian warship charged into the temple. The other pirates followed closely behind. They did not offend each other and kept a safe distance from each other. The same is true even for the Mother Tree Pirates who hate the Justice Pirates. In this place, excavating treasures was the most important thing. Grudges could be put aside for now. The Justice Pirates also rushed into the temple. The door of the temple was wide open. There were no floor tiles, only a jade-like water surface. The 10 battleships of the Justice Pirates crossed the water, and the ripples and waves quickly disappeared. The water, 10 steps away from the hull, remained calm. There were no obstructions at the gate of the temple either. The Justice Pirates are still in a complete state. Feng Yao said, "I remember the last time I was here, there was still a certain number of guards." Song Su said, "Maybe they were killed by the barbarian saint, or maybe they retreated to the temple when they saw that the enemy was too strong." The Blue Charm Temple was divided into 2 parts, above and below the water. The underwater part was the core. Zhong Gu frowned. "If it were me, I would definitely choose to abandon the defense of this place, withdraw my forces, and focus on defending the underwater temple. I would make full use of the advantages and convenience of my race." If that's the case, I'm afraid we will encounter great resistance. The Draconid youth sighed. Let's keep moving forward. We can only take one step at a time. On the bright side, at least there are other pirate groups to share the firepower. After entering the temple, they entered the hall. The hall was very spacious. The 10 ships of the Justice Pirates were like ants on a plate. The light of magic shone here, and everyone's vision was clear. That's strange. Where did the pirates who came in earlier go? It's too quiet, so quiet that's a bit scary. Look, there are huge murals on the wall. Everyone looked over and saw many murals. These murals were very large, and the lines were smooth and beautiful. The main character depicted was a mermaid. Mermaids and fishmen were two different races. Simply put, mermaids had a human body and a fish tail, while fishmen were fish with 4 limbs. In the first mural, a mermaid's lower body was curled up. Her arms were spread out like wings, and her palms were facing up. She was very beautiful, and her eyes were closed. Her forehead shone with light as she absorbed the surrounding elements. She was obviously meditating. This is Goddess Blue Charm, Feng Yao said excitedly. The pirate ship glided forward quietly in the hall, and the second mural gradually appeared in everyone's vision. In the mural, Goddess Blue Charm held a staff and stood proudly in the rolling waves. Her figure was graceful and elegant. Her enemy was an octopus monster, and it was sinking in the waves. The monster was covered in wounds, and its blood dyed the surrounding sea red. This was the scene of Goddess Blue Charm destroying the sea monster. Then, the third, fourth, and fifth mural. Some depicted the goddess leading her followers to fill the trenches. Some depicted the goddess leading an army and killing the enemy. There was also a goddess hugging a mermaid baby, surrounded by cheering crowds. In the 8th mural, Goddess Blue Charm flew into the starry sky. Stars shone around her, and countless believers knelt on the ground. Many people saw this and were enlightened. It turned out that these murals depicted Goddess Blue Charm's life achievements. In the 12th mural, Goddess Blue Charm was standing opposite many gods. There were only 3 gods by her side, but there were more than 10 gods in front of her. It was a huge lineup. In the sky above these gods, there was an eye that shone with infinite light. This was the sacred emblem of the Shengming sect, and it represented its owner, the Shengming Emperor. The confrontation between the two sides made everyone feel the tension in the air. The next 3 murals depicted the battle between Goddess Blue Charm and the Shengming Empire. There was no battle between the gods, but the small skirmishes between the believers and the army were very tragic. Although Goddess Blue Charm's side lost more than they won, as long as it was an underwater battle, they had a clear advantage and had a strong defense. In the 17th mural, there was a hidden witch holding a spherical potion bottle with a long neck and a round mouth. She was tilting the bottle and pouring out a purple potion. The purple potion flowed into the sea, and the mermaids, murlocs, and nagas all grabbed their throats. Their eyes rolled back, and they were in so much pain that they wanted to die. Poison machine? Song Su's pupils shrank. He recognized the witch in the painting. It should be her. Feng Yao nodded in agreement. Like the war traffickers, Poison Machine was also an alchemy grandmaster. She was best at making poisonous potions. She was the Shengming Emperor's confidant and was a legendary life form. In the 18th mural, the believers knelt in front of Goddess Blue Charm's statue and prayed. Around them were many corpses that had died from poison. There were very few believers praying. As for the statue, tears flowed down its face. In the 19th mural, Goddess Blue Charm used her divine power. Her face was full of kindness as she healed the believers. The believers cheered. Many of them seemed to have recovered, and some of the corpses were even coming back to life. However, behind Goddess Blue Charm, a thief with a dagger quietly approached. The dagger was about to stab in her heart, but she did not notice. In the 20th mural, the dagger stabbed into Goddess Blue Charm's body. Goddess Blue Charm fell to the ground, but many clones appeared from her body. These doppelgangers were all enveloped in a spherical halo of light. Their shapes were different, and they scattered like shooting stars, flying out in all directions. Goddess of tranquility, goddess of waves, goddess of water, goddess of fish. Everyone recognized these clones. Wait, that's the goddess of fishing nets. Lonzeo was shocked. From these clones, he found the god he believed in. It turned out that the goddess of fishing nets was also a clone of goddess Blue Charm. The 21st mural, which was also the last one, depicted an inner hall. The inner hall was circular, and in the center was goddess Blue Charm's body sleeping on a large shell-shaped bed. On the surrounding walls there were shrines, and in the shrines there were many statues of gods. They were goddess of tranquility, goddess of waves, goddess of water, goddess of fishing nets, and so on. These statues gave off strong or weak light. The light shone on goddess Blue Charm's body, seemingly healing her. The dragon-person youth carefully observed the mural. There are ripples in the inner hall. It should be an underwater temple. Feng Yao clutched his chest and cried. The second time I saw these murals, my heart ached even more. My goddess, let me save you. What should we do next? Song Su asked. After that, there were no more murals, only a wall. There was no way out of this hall. The 10 pirate ships were trapped here. They could only leave through the temple's main door. There must be a way out. Otherwise, where did the pirates go? Lan Zhao said. Feng Yao nodded. There's a magic formation here. Once it's activated, it'll form a hole in front of this wall. Once we enter the hole, we'll be able to enter the underwater temple. This information was very important, but Feng Yao had been hiding it and had never mentioned it before. Feng Yao looked at the dragon-person youth seriously. Dragon-person captain, I want to sign a new treaty with you. What is it about? Tell me. The dragon-person youth smiled. Song Su was expressionless. Zongu snorted. Feng Yao smiled bitterly. I hope that after you enter the underwater temple, you won't do anything to endanger goddess Blue Charm. The dragon-person youth shook his head. I can't guarantee that. We're pirates. We're here to steal treasures. The temple guards won't let us go. Whether we rob or fight the guards, we are endangering Blue Charm God's safety. Zongu stared at Feng Yao. Since the previous pirate groups were able to enter, it means that the magic formation isn't hard to activate. We don't need you. Covered in Dust also spoke. He looked nervous. Third Master. I know. Feng Yao waved to Covered in Dust. I'm a pirate too. I understand what you're all thinking. How about this? Change the treaty to not to endanger goddess Blue Charm's main body and doppelgangers. As for the temple's treasures or the guards, you can do whatever you want with them. The dragon-person youth, Song Su, and Zongu looked at each other. They didn't agree immediately. Instead, they said, we need to discuss this. Go ahead. The three of them went to the captain's room to discuss. After a while, they decided to accept Feng Yao's new treaty. Both sides quickly used the contract scroll. Thank you for your understanding. Feng Yao breathed a sigh of relief. He poured his magic power into the magic formation and activated it. The mirror-like surface of the water turned into a whirlpool. The Justice Pirate ships were already prepared to dive. They all dove into the whirlpool. As soon as they entered, the dragon-person youth's body suddenly glowed with divine spell imprints. Whoosh! The light suddenly exploded. The dragon-person youth disappeared. Chapter 315. Underwater Temple. Billow Hall. Almost all of the Blue Charm Temple's immortal guards were gathered here. With a flash of light, the youth was teleported into the hall. The youth was shocked. He realized that he was surrounded by enemies. Murlocs were the majority, but there were also Nagas, lobstermen, mermaids, sea elves, and other races. Entering the suction pool, the youth's divine art imprint glowed and reacted with the magic formation. However, this change was not out of the youth's expectations. According to the information provided by Feng Yao, Murlocs with divine art imprints would be teleported to the underwater temple. The youth captain was already on his guard when he entered the Sky Pillar's water screen. So when the teleportation happened, he changed form from a dragon man to a Murloc. However, he did not expect, I think I've been teleported to the main camp of the city guards. There were about 500 to 600 people here, and almost all of them were transcendents. Most of them were bronze and dark iron, and there were at least 20 silver auras. In fact, there were 3 gold rankers, all of them wearing the city guard's insignia. They should be commanders. The one who attracted the youth's attention the most was High Priestess Blue Charm, who stood on the highest platform with her back facing most people. Judging from her back, she was a female Naga. She had a snake's tail and a human's body. She had green snake scales, a graceful waist for arms, and orange fin-like antennae on her forehead. Saint level. High Priestess Blue Charm was a saint-level clergyman. Here's another one. Hey, it's our brother from the Murloc tribe. While the youth was carefully observing, the Murloc beside him patted his shoulder and greeted him. Where are you from? What's your name? The Murloc who greeted him acted like they were close friends. The youth glanced over and observed the Murloc. He noticed that the Murloc was short and fat, with sharp teeth. When he spoke, his bright red tongue stuck out his mouth. His most obvious feature was his pair of red eyes. This was the youth's first encounter with a Murloc bloodline. The red-eyed Murloc had a dark iron aura, while the youth was disguised as a brown-scaled Murloc, which was also dark iron. The youth could now transform into a complete brown-scaled Murloc, dark blue wise Murloc, and barbarian Murloc, but he did not choose the strongest barbarian Murloc form. This was because he had used this form to kill the White-Eyed clan's patriarch back in the Oceanized City. As for his original identity, he could have died tragically during the five-headed snake's rampage. His brown-scaled fishman appearance this time was different from when he was running around. This was because he had also used other merfolk bloodlines. Cut scale tribe you buy. The young merman randomly came up with 2 names. In any case, the mermen were scattered everywhere, not only at the bottom of the sea, but also at the coastline, riverbanks, swamps, and so on. The red-eyed fishman giggled as he raised his thumb and pointed at himself. I am Red Pot, from the Red Star tribe. Hee. The young merman nodded at him and continued to observe while giving him a perfunctory reply. While he was talking to Red Pot, another light flashed in the hall, and 2 or 3 extraordinaires were teleported in. It wasn't just the Murlocs that were teleported over. There were also the Nagas, mermaids, and even lobstermen. Those who had the divine mark were the lucky ones chosen by Blue Charm God and qualified to take the test, but not just the Murlocs. Blue Charm God had many identities. Among them, most of the Murlocs believed in the fish god, so they used the name of the fish god to issue the divine mark. The Murlocs called it the fish god's test. Most of the lobstermen believed in the wave god. The image of this god's clone was the image of a lobsterman, so the lobstermen who were teleported over thought that this was the wave god's test. It was the same for Calm Lake God, the fishing net goddess, and so on. Of course, among all the clones, the fish god's faith was the most widespread. Most of the extraordinaires were believers of the fish god. After all, most of the underwater race's food source was fish. The believers believed that believing in the fish god would allow them to enjoy fish without sin, and they wouldn't be punished to hell after death. The young merman had already found out about this when he was in CI City, so he wasn't surprised. As for the Justice Pirates, the young merman had taken care of them before they left. Zhonggu, Song Su, and the others were very reliable. After waiting for about 15 minutes, Blue Charm God finally succeeded in casting the spell. In front of everyone's eyes, the rippling light changed, revealing various scenes. In these rippling illusions, there were barbarians, treants, and of course the Justice Pirates. Warriors chosen by God. Since you've come to participate in God's test, then defeat all the invading enemies. Listen to the orders of the 3 commanders and fight. Use the flesh and blood of the enemy to increase your glory. Improve your ability and devotion to the Almighty God. The high priest turned around and called out to everyone present. Don't worry. Oh, the believers who were crowded in the hall shouted in unison. Murlocs, follow me. The Murloc commander of the immortal army waved his hand. Nagas, follow me. The Naga commander's voice was hoarse. Everyone else, come to my side. The sea elf called out. The believers were divided into 3 groups and gathered around the 3 gold-level commanders. Then, a turbulent whirlpool appeared in the wave hall, and 3 holes opened up in the wall. They were suction pits. Follow them. Maybe we can meet up with everyone. The young merman was mixed in with the murlocs and was inconspicuous. He followed everyone into the suction pit. This wasn't the first time he had experienced this, so he was familiar with it. Coming out from another suction pit, they were facing enemies. It wasn't the Justice Pirates, nor was it the Mother Tree Pirates. This was an alliance of a group of pirates. Among all the groups that came to the Heaven's Pillar Sea, they had the most people. Their temporary leader was Sheena, a gold-level warlock. Rush over and kill them. The Murloc commander didn't arrange any tactics and directly rushed to the front line. In fact, the Murlocs gathered from all over the sea and weren't familiar with each other, so it was more difficult to arrange tactics. The commander was so brave that the Murlocs were motivated and fearlessly attacked more than 30 pirate ships. "Hey, brother, take care of me." The red-eyed Murlocs took the initiative to swim to the side of the young merman. The young merman nodded. He didn't want to slaughter the humans, so he only wanted to show the power of the black iron level. He chose an ordinary pirate ship and rushed over. This pirate ship didn't have a metal coating, but used crystal glue, and the glue layer was much thinner than that of the Justice Pirates. Some Murlocs had already killed their way onto the pirate ship, and most of them were fighting with the crystal glue. The pirates hid behind the crystal glue and kept shooting. They used huge crossbows to shoot harpoons. If they were hit, the Murlocs would be seriously injured and would die on the spot. "Follow me. I know where the other's weak point is." The red-eyed Murlocs called the young merman. The young merman followed him to the bottom of the ship. Under the young merman's surprised gaze, the red-eyed Murlocs accurately harpooned the weak point of the crystal glue, then waved the harpoon and easily cut open the glue. "How did you do it?" the young merman asked curiously. This kind of weakness was difficult to find for people who weren't familiar with the crystal glue. Sang-Soo could do it, but the young merman couldn't. The red-eyed Murlocs proudly raised his head. "I have overturned many pirate ships like this. There's no other way. Our tribe is often harassed by pirates." The weakness of the crystal glue was broken, and immediately a chain reaction occurred. The tear became bigger and bigger, and finally a large area of rupture was formed. Without the protection of the crystal glue, the heavy water pressure immediately pressed on the hull, deforming the pirate ship. Many pirates suffered from the water pressure and died on the spot. The Murlocs screamed and swarmed in, slaughtering the pirates on the ship. "Let's go." In the midst of the slaughter, the young merman suddenly pulled Red Pot. Red Pot was in the middle of killing and was disturbed by the young merman. He was slightly angry. "The more we kill, the more time we have to get the holy water of the fish god, brother." The young merman didn't stay and directly pulled out. Red Pot stared blankly for a moment, gritted his teeth, and still chose to follow. The two Murlocs had just swum out of the fallen pirate ship when a meteorite hit them. Boom! With a loud sound, water burst out, and the entire pirate ship was blown into countless pieces. The Murlocs and the few surviving pirates died on the spot. "Good brother, thank you." The red-eyed Murlocs were dumbstruck. "How did you know?" The young merman said perfunctorily, "I'm a mixed blood." On the other hand, he looked in the direction of the meteorite. It was a huge silver-ranked magic ship, Catapult. The captain of Catapult was the gold-ranked warlock Shuna. Then, the young merman saw the commander of the Murlocs rush onto Catapult. The vanguard of the Murlocs had already broken through the line of defense and attacked the pirate commander. The Murlocs have a huge advantage in fighting in the water. They can attack from above, below, left, and right. Human pirates are more used to fighting on the sea. Seeing this, the young merman couldn't help but worry about his Justice Pirates. He didn't know how they were doing. At this moment, in another underwater battlefield, "Go up, everyone meet the enemy." Zhong-Gu, who was in charge of the Silver Hook, shouted. The Silver Hook faced the Sea Elven commander, and the other side's offensive was immediately hindered. Sang-Soo, who was in charge of the Justice Pirates, saw this scene. While giving orders to adjust the formation, he said to Feng Yao, "Lion Flag is only silver-ranked. He can't hold on for long." Feng Yao nodded, his fingers gently stroking the strings. Immediately, the sound of music floated out, falling on Zhongji's body. Zhongji's body suddenly swelled by 30%. All the hair on his body stood up, his eyes emitted light, and a surge of power emerged from his body. He had already used an underwater breathing potion. At this moment, holding the magic blood sword, he rushed out of the silver hook and attacked the Sea Elven commander. The Sea Elven commander used his dual swords to block the magic blood sword. Clang! With a deafening sound, the two collided and retreated. It was actually a tie. The Sea Elven commander's face was gloomy. Interesting. Zhongge licked his lips in excitement. As a bard, Feng Yao was best at providing buffs to his allies. His move was extraordinary, immediately giving Zhongge the power of a gold rank. Chapter 3:16. The Justice Pirates were being besieged. The cannons on the pirate ships continued to fire, interweaving into a sparse net of firepower. The unlucky ones who were hit by the cannonballs, the weak ones died on the spot, the medium ones were still alive, and the strong ones were sent flying by the cannonballs. A few lobstermen relied on their thick shells to rush through the net of firepower and onto the deck of a pirate ship. On the deck, the extraordinary level pirates were already on standby, and the two sides immediately clashed. Water magic. Curved snake water arrow. A silver-level sea elf cast a spell, forming a snake-shaped water arrow. The water arrow shot out, penetrating the crystal rubber and drilling into the cannon position in the cabin. The pirates on the cannon position were caught off guard and suffered one after another. The snake-shaped water arrow meandered and drilled into the heads of many cannoneers, directly silencing one side of the pirate ship. On the nearby pirate ship, Suma jumped nimbly on the beam, dodging the spear of a male mermaid. "Come and support me," Suma shouted, using the sails, masts, and other obstacles to delay time. The two bronze pirates who came to support soon fell in the hands of the mermaid spearmen. "You can't escape." The male mermaid was a black iron, and his combat power was very strong. But in the next moment, his face froze as he saw a group of pirates rushing out of the cabin, each holding an alchemy crossbow. The crossbows fired together, the arrows shining with various colors. The mermaid spearman screamed and wanted to dodge, but it was too late. He was shot like a hedgehog and died on the spot. "Who told you to chase me?" Suma subconsciously wiped the cold sweat on his forehead with his hand. After doing this, he realized that he was in the water. In the captain's room of the Justice ship, Sang-Soo had been watching the battlefield. Whether it was the sea elf's magic massacre or the pirate archers surrounding and hunting the mermaid spearmen, they were all under his attention. In the water magic has been greatly strengthened. Humans are restricted in fighting here. Compared to the land, their combat power is generally lower, and this is after a lot of training in the early stages. However, every ship has a crossbow team, and so far, the results are quite good. Sang-Soo was in a nervous state. He was not good at commanding battles. Zhongge, who was really good at this, had already rushed to the front line. Sang-Soo's gaze immediately turned to the half-beast man. He knew that Zhongge wasn't someone who didn't care about the overall situation. The orc had the ability to lead. If he hadn't gone up directly, the Justice Pirates formation would have been destroyed by the enemy. Not only Sang-Soo, but Feng Yao was also paying attention to the battle between Zhongge and the Sea Elf commander. The outcome of their battle would determine the outcome of this war. He excitedly said to Flute beside him, "Look, this is what a bard is like." Flute, Grey Cho, Gold Chin, and the sea snake lady killed in all directions, successfully stopping the enemy's encirclement. The Justice Pirates' cannon fire was endless, and since the beginning of the battle, it had not stopped. The Sea Elf commander was furious because he found that the enemy had already begun to counterattack. If he allowed the battle to continue like this, his team would suffer a crushing defeat. "You have successfully angered me. Very well. Next, I will let you see my true strength. Gods of the many gods, please show me your might, and let me kill all of them." The sea elf raised his head and shouted. Immediately, his body bloomed with the radiance of divine power. In the dazzling light, the sea elf commander split into two into four into eight. In an instant, there were 7 more sea elf commanders on the battlefield. The aura of the 8 gold rank powerhouses shocked the entire battlefield. The Justice Pirates' breathing could not help but stagnate. There is no need to chant at all. There are clones directly. 8 gold ranks, how do we fight? Don't panic, they're just clones. That's right, 7 of the 8 sea elf commanders are fake, and 1 is real. Find the real one. Kill those clones. The fake sea elf commanders are far weaker than the real one. They are more fragile. However, in the following battle, the 8 sea elf commanders had no flaws. Each of them was equal in combat power and defense, and the Justice Pirates were defeated. One of the pirate ships did not succeed in retreating and was directly destroyed by one of the sea elf commanders. Zongu, Gold Chin, and the others fought hard and barely delayed the sea elf commander's attack. Gold Chin, Sea Snake Lady, and the others were injured one after another. Although they were strengthened by Feng Yao's spell, they could only be regarded as gold rank. Only Zongu alone could fight the sea elf commander to a draw. What do you think this is? This is the temple of our Lord. Here we are invincible. The 8 sea elf commanders shouted in unison. They began to join forces with each other, and the pressure on the Justice Pirates' defense line increased sharply, and they were soon defeated. This kind of divine blessing is too exaggerated. Feng Yao's face was very ugly. The 8 sea elf commanders pursued the victory, and Feng Yao had to fight personally, but it was still difficult to change the situation. The Justice Pirates coalition could not hold their ground and could only start a flee. On the other side of the battlefield, like the sea elf commander, the Murloc commander was also showing his power. He was strengthened by divine spells, and his whole body was covered in a dark green ball of light. The magic runes in the ball of light were faintly discernible, protecting the Murloc commander from the attack of magic. The Murloc commander was in a state of magic immunity. Damn it! The gold warlock on the catapult gritted his teeth. His spells had no effect on the magic immunity ball of light, so he could only change to summoning spells, which he was not good at. Stone golems blocked the Murloc commander. The Murloc commander stirred up his chi, and his body faintly expanded by 30%, rampaging on the deck of the catapult, dismantling the stone golems into piles of rubble. The power of this divine spell is too strong. The Murloc youth was slacking in the corner of the battlefield, secretly speechless. He had never seen such a long time of magic immunity, and even when attacked by magic, the magic immunity ball of light remained firm, showing no signs of consumption or weakening. The gold warlock was severely restrained, and could only watch as the Murloc commander dismantled more than half of his ship, the catapult. The gold warlock could only choose to abandon the ship and flee. Of course, the Murloc commander was not willing to let him go, and chased after him. The gold warlock was quite fast, and directly threw himself into a small nest, completely abandoning his subordinates and allies, and thoroughly leaving the battlefield. The commander's escape caused the morale of the pirates to plummet, and the morale of the army was in chaos. The Murloc took the opportunity to launch a massacre, not letting anyone go, even if they took the initiative to beg for mercy. The Murloc youth won, but he was not in the mood. The Murloc commander's battle prowess was at the gold rank, and the youth had already estimated this. But the power of that divine spell was too strong and too long-lasting. It could be said that it was this divine spell that determined the victory of this battle. After killing all the pirates, the Murloc commander led the Murloc back in triumph. When he returned, the Murloc youth discovered that the Naga commander's troops had been back for a long time, and they were the second army to return in triumph. The rest of the miscellaneous troops, led by the Sea Elves, had not yet returned. Very good, you have proven yourselves. Although the test has not yet ended, but you can get a part of the rewards that you deserve. The high priest smiled. Take these brave warriors of my lord into the holy pond, and receive the baptism of the holy water. Oh! The Murloc cheered. The Murloc youth was curious, and mixed in with the crowd, he left the billows hall. Passing through a dark and long passageway in the water, they came to a hall that retained air. In the center of the hall was a circular pool, and a water column poured down from the ceiling. The water column was not thick, and the water flow was not rapid, but it emitted a faint white light. This was the holy pond and the holy water. The high priest on one side explained to everyone, "Next, according to your respective battle achievements, you will enter the holy pond in batches and receive the baptism." The Murloc youth had an excited expression, but his heart was greatly shaken. What's going on? The blood core in his heart gave rise to a strong desire. Devour. Devour it. Wild Murlocs like us can't talk to them unless we can perform well in the holy pond and make them take the initiative to recruit us. The status of a CI city was very high. Whether it was sauerkraut or red pot, they all showed yearning. Red pot then looked at the holy pond with a burning gaze. This is a gift from the fish god. This might be the only chance we have in our lives. Other than increasing my cultivation, I also hope to increase the concentration of my blood. Listen to me, brother. Try your best to hold on. The longer you stay in the holy pond, the more benefits you'll get. The young Murlocs nodded. I understand. The Murlocs entered the holy pond in batches. They all improved more or less. But the most eye-catching one was still Xiaobai. After all, she had the golden bloodline of the magic type. There were 3 or 4 who had the same performance as Poison Flow. I'll go first. Red Pot patted the young Murloc's shoulder. He had more achievements than the young Murlocs and entered the holy pond first. Ah! The Murlocs looked at him. This was the most tragic scream they had ever heard. Red Pot's performance was very good. Although he screamed the most, his willpower was very strong. He lasted the longest among the Murlocs in the same batch. When he staggered out of the holy pond, he was immediately healed by a divine spell. Regaining his composure, he let out a low roar and actually used the bloodthirst technique. Under the effect of bloodlust, his muscles bulged. His strength and speed both increased rapidly. The red-eyed Murloc's bloodline was silver. Bloodlust was their only talent spell, but it was very useful. Red Pot cultivated chi, but he could use this spell with his bloodline. Just like before, the young Dragon Man used Dragon Breath and Dragon Aura before opening the Mana Pond. Xiaobai and Poison Flow saw Red Pot's performance and started discussing. That red-eyed Murlocs is not bad. Yes, Bloodlust is a very good spell. Let's go recruit them. The CI city had suffered a great loss because of the young Murlocs, not only in terms of wealth, but also in terms of talent. They needed new blood. Speaking of which, could there be the Murlocs that caused the chaos in the CI city? It shouldn't be. I've seen all the Murlocs in the Barbarian Fish clan, but I didn't find anyone similar. We've also told this to the priests. They should be able to find out. Sigh, that Murlocs killed so many people. There are many divine spell imprints on his body. I'm just afraid that he's a devout believer. Even if the priests find out, they won't punish him. That can't be right. The CI city suffered a great loss. He even framed Lord Fiveheads. Lord Fiveheads is the direct descendant of Lord Sacred Beast. Xiaobai and Poison Flow talked as they went to find Red Pot. Red Pot had already returned to the young Murlocs. Ha! He laughed, pleased with himself. This prophet far exceeded his expectations. He couldn't help but show off. I didn't expect to be able to dig out the talent spell of the red-eyed bloodline. This is great. Someone is here. It seems to be looking for you. The young Murlocs raised his head slightly and said to Red Pot. Xiaobai and Poison Flow came together with smiles on their faces. They glanced at the young Murlocs. They didn't notice that the Murlocs they hated to the bones were standing in front of them. Their gazes turned to Red Pot, and they represented their families to formally recruit him. Thank you for your appreciation, but this matter is very important. I need some time to think about it. Red Pot's voice trembled. He couldn't hide his excitement. Of course, Xiaobai and Poison Flow took the initiative to leave. CI City. Red Pot grabbed the young Murloc's arm. I'm going to reach the peak of my life. Congratulations. The young Murloc smiled. But what about your tribe? Without me, my tribe can still live and develop. In fact, when I gain a foothold in the CI City, I can give back to my tribe. Red Pot was very excited. Soon, it was the young Murloc's turn. It's your turn. Brother, do your best. You have to persevere. Look at me. The longer you persevere, the stronger you will be. A beautiful tomorrow is waiting for you. Red Pot encouraged the young Murlocs. The young Murlocs nodded. He entered the sacred water pond with a group of Murlocs. The blood core in his heart had an even stronger desire to devour. Soon the fish god fountain was created. The sacred water, emitting dense white light, washed over the young Murlocs. Pain immediately came. The young Murlocs discovered that the sacred water emitting white light gradually seeped into his body and then into his blood vessels. It changed his constitution at the most fundamental level. This change was very intense. Hence, he felt pain. The young Murlocs gritted his teeth. He had strong willpower and mental strength, so he could endure it for now. He didn't cry out. The blood core in his heart began to tremble slightly. It seems like this sacred water can be seen as a very high-grade life essence. Even the blood core is excited. Try using it. Just a little. Chapter 3:18. The young Murloc quietly and carefully activated the blood core. The blood core suddenly burst out with red light. Like a hungry tiger that had been released, the red light suddenly filled the young man's body and swept away all the holy water that had seeped into his body. Before the young man could react, the holy water that had seeped into his body had been completely absorbed by the red light. So fast, the young man was secretly shocked. He instinctively felt that it was inevitable and hurriedly controlled the blood core. He controlled the blood core and successfully confined the red light to his body, not letting it out. Although the young man still couldn't control the blood core to a fine degree and couldn't save the big guy from the bloodline conflict, he had made great progress compared to when he was on the Island of Confusion. After all, this was his biggest trump card, and he had been secretly practicing. The holy water that had seeped in was directly swallowed up by the red light, and the young Murloc's pain was completely gone. The impact of the water flow itself was very small, and it was just a small fountain. What really made the pain unbearable was that the holy water had seeped into the Murloc's body and transformed it. Therefore, the blood core had eliminated the young Murloc's pain from the root. The young Murloc stood straight. This brother of mine is so tough. He has great perseverance. He actually resisted the holy water without saying a word. His body didn't move, and he didn't even lower his head. Red Pot had been paying attention to the young Murloc, and when he saw this scene, he immediately admired him. The Murlocs around the young man began to groan, and some even cried out in a low voice. The young man noticed this situation, and although he didn't feel any pain, he also began to groan. I have to keep a low profile. I can't stand out too much. The young man reminded himself. If his performance was too exceptional, he would definitely be investigated. Although it was very risky to secretly activate the blood core in the holy water pool, from the strong impulse transmitted by the blood core, the benefits would definitely be great. Moreover, the young Murloc himself had a certain degree of confidence. Even if he was investigated, he had pearl foam on him. At present, all the pearl foam had been concentrated on him. This was the preparation of the Justice Pirates before they broke into the half-plane. The young Murloc groaned again and continued to persevere. He strictly controlled the blood core, and the latter always had a tendency to be restless, wanting to rush out and directly swallow all the holy water. The young man clearly felt that the difficulty of controlling it had begun to increase. Now, he was like a novice riding a wild horse. If he was careless, he would fall. The Murlocs who entered the holy water pond with him began to kneel on the ground. The young man continued to groan as he carefully observed his surroundings. When he saw this scene, his body began to tremble slightly. Good job, brother. You can do it. You can persist for the longest time. You have to do your best. Hong's encouraging voice sounded. Not only him, the other fishmen also began to pay attention to the young man. Because in this batch, the young merman's performance was the best, and he was the strongest. This was the result of the young merman's deliberate control. Although he was slightly outstanding, he wasn't too outstanding. This way, he would have a reason to prolong the process and allow the blood core to absorb more holy water. Since the blood core had such a strong urge to devour it, the holy water must be good stuff. Not long after, the murlocs began to howl miserably. Most of them were half kneeling or kneeling on both knees, using their hands to support themselves at the bottom of the holy water pool. Some of them were even lying on their stomachs, grimacing in pain as they endured the full impact of the holy water. Only the young merman was still standing. Who is this? He's amazing. More and more murlocs focused their attention on the young merman. All right, I can half kneel too. The young merman's heart trembled slightly. He had been observing his surroundings, unwilling to be too eye-catching. But in the next moment, the young man's heart suddenly thumped. He realized that he couldn't move at all. How can this be? Most of his attention was focused on controlling the blood core, and he didn't check on his own body much. After entering the holy water pool, he walked to the center and stopped moving, so it was difficult for him to notice this situation. The holy water is constantly washing over me, seeping in from all directions, almost engulfing me. And the light of the blood core is also filling my body. The two are mutually attracting each other, making me unable to move. The young man used his mind to check and immediately understood the reason. It was the combination of the blood core and the holy water. The young man's heart calmed down slightly. Now that he knew the reason, it was easy to deal with. He just had to stop the blood core. In the next moment, he was about to shut down the blood core and withdraw all the blood light. However, the young man's heart thumped again. He realized that the blood core in his body was out of control. How can this be? Even when absorbing the Flame Dragon King, the young man could stop the blood core at any time. Why can't it stop here? Oh no! The young man couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Fortunately, the constant washing of the holy water covered this flaw. This unforeseen event was beyond his imagination. He had never encountered anything like this before. The blood core had always been very obedient, but at this moment, the young man couldn't stop. More importantly, the young merman was still being washed by the holy water in front of everyone. Seeing him standing there proudly, many murlocs were moved. Who is this merman? Strange, he's clearly a brown scale, but he can hold on for so long. My brother's bloodline isn't just brown scale. He has another bloodline. Red Pot raised his head and explained loudly. I see. Many mermen nodded slightly. The young merman started to feel anxious and nervous. The blood light was madly absorbing the holy water. If he hadn't suppressed it with all his might, it would have gushed out of his body. No matter how the young man used his mind to control the blood core remained indifferent. It was determined to have a big meal. Du Lu clicked his tongue and looked at the young merman's back with admiration. He's a warrior. Xiaobai nodded in agreement. He didn't even stagger. The two of them looked at each other and wanted to recruit the young merman. If the two of them knew that the murloc they admired was the culprit behind the chaos in the CI city, who knew how they would feel? The young merman actually wanted to shake his body, but he couldn't. He had no choice but to let out a scream. Red Pot's expression changed. Brother, come on, you can do it. Hold on. After a while, the mermen of the same batch as the young merman had all left the holy water pond. They couldn't hold on any longer. They had more or less improved. Looking at the young merman's back, these mermen all looked at him with admiration. He only started to scream after holding on for so long. Who is he? How can he have such great potential? The young merman felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. He knew his situation. On one hand, he was trying to stop the blood core in secret. On the other hand, He was screaming with all his might, trying to make his screams even more miserable. Many mermen were moved by his screams. We all know the pain of being washed by the holy water. This merman can hold on for so long and still scream with such vigor. He's amazing. Look at him. His body is as straight as a spear, and he doesn't kneel. He has pride. Even the priest beside the holy water pond started to praise him. The young merman's performance was rare. What should I do? The young merman heard the praises around him, and he had mixed feelings. He couldn't just keep screaming. Stop! Stop! The young merman didn't stop trying to control the blood core. The blood core didn't react. It was too thirsty, and it didn't let go of even a drop of the holy water that seeped in. The holy water outside wanted to wash, inject, and seep in, while the bloodlight inside wanted to roll and swallow. The two worked together to fix the young merman's body on the spot without any sign of moving. After a while, the surrounding mermen started to look shocked. Unbelievable! An exclamation shocked everyone, and the mermen all bowed. It was High Priest Blue Charm who came directly after receiving the news. She was a holy domain, a four-armed naga. At this moment, her eyes were fixed on the young merman, and her face was filled with curiosity, excitement. What was happening to the young merman was unprecedented. What's going on? Someone asked the high priest. The high priestess smiled. Although this was also the first time she had seen it, she appeared to be at ease. Don't worry. This is because his bloodline is far beyond the ordinary, so he has been absorbing the holy water. The bloodline hidden in his body is awakening. The mermen were in an uproar and started to guess what bloodline the young merman was awakening. The young merman was speechless. After a while, the young merman was still screaming, but his body was still standing straight. What's going on? There's still no change on the surface of his body. Isn't his bloodline awakening? The mermen were puzzled. The high priestess smiled. Although she was also very puzzled, she appeared to be very wise. Don't worry. This is because his bloodline is far beyond ordinary, so the speed of awakening is very slow. However, there will always be changes. The young merman was speechless. He tried his best to activate the blood core. Perhaps because he had been trying for a long time, he finally made some progress. Although he could not immediately stop the blood core, he could make the blood core recover part of the bloodlight. The bloodlight returned to the blood core, and there was an incomplete bloodline in the blood core. The young merman was shocked. He did not know what bloodline it was, but he could sense the grade of the bloodline. The grade of this incomplete bloodline was as high as the divine rank. Divine rank merman bloodline. The young merman was stunned. My blood core can absorb divine rank bloodlines? Wait, when I absorb the Flame Dragon King, it only means that I can attack legendary rank life forms. It does not mean that legendary is the limit. Also, this is not a divine rank life form, but holy water. Obviously, it is the product of Blue Charm God's processing. Since it can be absorbed by so many mermen, it might be easier to use. So the blood core can absorb it? For a moment, various guesses appeared in the young merman's mind. With this incomplete bloodline, the young merman calmed down a little. He immediately tried to mutate. The blood core was still out of control, and the bloodlight it emitted was used to devour the holy water. This was the most difficult mutation the young merman had ever undergone. Fortunately, he still succeeded. His body's characteristics began to change. These changes were slow, but once they happened, High Priestess Blue Charm cried out, "This is..." The other mermen did not have such high standards. When they saw High Priestess Blue Charm lose her composure, they all subconsciously held their breaths and waited for the High Priestess to reveal the answer. The next moment, the High Priestess did not disappoint. She said with a trembling voice, "Sha-Ching, this is the divine rank Sha-Ching bloodline." Boom! The mermen were in an uproar. There had been gods among the mermen, so they naturally had divine rank bloodlines. However, mermen could not be compared to humans, dwarves, and elves. Their potential was generally low. The number of extraordinaires was not high, and magic types were more precious. The rarity of divine rank bloodlines was even more terrifying. Divine rank? Red Pot's eyes widened. Brother, you are too powerful. Xia Bai and Du Lu immediately gave up on the idea of recruiting the young merman and changed their minds. How could they submit to him? Under the mutation of the blood core, the young merman's body continued to grow, becoming taller and more slender. The merman's tail had almost degenerated, but he began to grow a tail instead. Countless eyes were shining as they stared at the young merman's body. The scorching heat in these eyes seemed to raise the temperature of the holy water. The young merman knew that he was being roasted on a fire. It looked glorious, but danger lurked everywhere. However, he had no choice. He could only mutate and act normal. Stop it, stop it! The young merman's attempt at the blood core had reached a bottleneck. He could only mutate, but he could not completely stop the blood core. However, as if it had heard the young merman's thoughts, the holy water spewing out of the statue gradually decreased. The holy water is about to run out, a priest said with a look of amazement. A priest said, his face full of surprise. Too much holy water washed over his body. I have never seen such a situation before. No, we must not let the holy water stop. High Priest Blue Charm suddenly said, gather all the believers and priests. Come and pray. Help the statue quickly produce holy water. The high priest's order was quickly carried out. A large number of clergymen rushed in and surrounded the holy water pool. They knelt and prayed, their voices shaking the surroundings. The holy water instantly surged again. The young merman was speechless. He could only continue to absorb and then continuously let out miserable howls. He screamed until his voice became hoarse. He can still scream. That's amazing. That's too terrifying. Such willpower. As expected of the possessor of divine blood, praises could be heard everywhere. The more holy water he absorbed, the more he mutated. The scales on the young merman's body began to change. They changed from ordinary flat fish scales to shark-like shield scales. The shield scales were arranged much more tightly than ordinary fish scales. They covered the young merman's body in layers. The young merman completely grew a shark-like tail. His limbs became strong and powerful. His hands were also covered in shield scales, as if he was wearing a layer of gloves. The holy water became scarce again. High Priest Blue Charm stared at the young merman. He can still scream. He still has energy left, but the holy water is too little. No, he can't stop. High Priest Blue Charm bent down and put her arms into the pool. Waves of divine power surged out of her body and gathered into the holy water pool. The originally sparse, holy water became turbulent again. The young man, with the full support of a divine domain, the holy water gushed out violently this time. It was like a small waterfall. This greatly stimulated the blood core. Red lights surged and almost gushed out of the young man's body. At this critical moment, the young man could only make up his mind. He suddenly opened his mouth and raised his head. I drink. Gulp, gulp. He swallowed the holy water in big gulps. The mermen were so shocked that their bodies turned numb. He actually drank the holy water directly. My God, too brave, too brave. Although the young merman's action was out of line, it saved him. Large amounts of holy water entered his stomach and greatly satisfied the blood core. The bloodlight rapidly transformed the holy water, and the concentration of the divine bloodline in the blood core rapidly increased. The young merman continued to transform. His height directly increased to 2 meters, and he became tall and slender. His shark tail was at least 5 meters long, and the lines of his fishtail were smooth and beautiful. His shield scales grew all the way to his mouth and transformed into layers of sharp teeth. In the young merman's bloody mouth, there were a total of 3 layers of sharp teeth. His teeth were uneven and extremely sharp. It made one's heart tremble, but it was not complete yet. Plop! High Priest Blue Charm fell into the pool. She had been squeezed dry and could not hold on any longer. Without her strength, the holy water immediately became thin and weak again. Not long after, the holy water finally stopped gushing out. Without the temptation of the holy water, the blood core was somewhat satisfied. It no longer had the strong urge to devour as before, and the young man regained control. Finally, the young merman exhaled and stretched his limbs. As soon as he turned around, he saw the mermen around him kneeling on the ground. "Son of God," a merman muttered. "Son of God." A merman's eyes were filled with tears. "Son of God! Son of God!" More mermen began to shout loudly. They were very fanatical. The young merman looked at the mermen kneeling on the ground, and then looked at High Priest Blue Charm. The High Priest's face was pale and filled with relief. She nodded slowly at the young merman. The young merman was speechless. How did it end up like this? He had accidentally become the merman race's son of God. Chapter 319. Son of God. Son of God. Cheers filled the entire underwater hall. The appearance of a god-level bloodline was no small matter. This meant that the owner of the bloodline had the possibility of becoming a god. Once a new god ascended to the throne, the entire world would be affected. Just looking at the pirate throne alone was enough. The Shungming Empire, recognized as the strongest country in the world, also had to pay attention to the pirate throne, worried that the god of pirates would interfere with them greatly. Of course, there was also knowledge about god-level bloodlines. The specific value mainly depended on the concentration of the bloodline. There was a difference between the sons of God. If the concentration of god-level bloodline was not high, the achievements of the sons of God would be limited. If the concentration was high enough, they would not be able to grow without resources. There were many sons of God among the human race, and the competition between them was very intense. The potential of the Murlocs was not as good as that of the human race. Among the human race, the sons of God competed with each other for resources. But among the Murlocs, even magic types were rare, let alone god-level bloodlines. Therefore, once a Murloc with god-level bloodline appeared, it would attract extreme attention. This was also the reason why High Priest Blue Charm, as a sanctuary, sacrificed herself to help the young Murloc. Currently, the concentration of Sha Qing's bloodline stored in the blood core is 38%, 3% higher than the legendary bloodline of the Flame Dragon King. The young man secretly checked. The holy water was very powerful. The current situation was beyond his expectations. Although the young man did his best and did not expose the blood core, he knew very well that he was still not out of danger. There would be a lot of checks next. To be honest, he regretted it. If he had known the result, he would not have dared to try. Although god-level bloodline was good, the young man had the blood core, and his future was very bright. There was no need to take such a risk. What scale-cutting tribe, Yabai, these identities could not withstand the checks. Also, the young Murloc was just saying it perfunctorily. It was easy to see through. Of course, he could also lie and say that he was in disguise and did not want to reveal his true identity to others. But he had to have a background. The young man did not have one. If they really investigated, the Murlocs would find that he, the possessor of god-level bloodline, had appeared out of nowhere. He did not have a hometown. Even if he was a wanderer, he must have a wandering route and seen and heard along the way. Wherever he walked, there would be traces. But he did not. Because he did not. He could not withstand the checks. Since they had discovered the Son of God, the merfolk would definitely do their best to nurture him. Before that, the inspection was necessary and would be very strict. He had failed the inspection, and the young man was unable to explain himself. What should he do? What awaited the youth was either prison or a butcher's knife. I only have 6 pearl foam pearls on me. Can they protect me from the detection of divine spells and spells? The young man couldn't help but worry. It wasn't that he didn't want to bring more, but this was already his limit. There were only 10 pearl bubbles left. 6 of them were on the young man, and the rest were assigned to deep-sea monster fish. The investigation into the youth's identity and background would definitely take a long time and be frequent. It wouldn't stop until there was a result. 6 pearl bubbles definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. Most importantly, How many waves of divine arts and spells he could withstand would determine how long he could hide in the main temple of Blue Charm. Under the eager, fanatical, reverent, and curious gazes, the young man slowly walked out of the holy water pool. High Priestess Blue Charm smiled and placed her arm on the young man's shoulder. She didn't say much and immediately used a detection divine spell. The pearl bubbles began to take effect. What a strong recovery ability. I couldn't tell that you had just been cleansed by the holy water. High Priestess Blue Charm's eyes lit up. Newborn son of God, may I know your name? The young merman had a headache. He couldn't find a relatively reliable identity in a short time, so he could only answer, "My name is Yabai from the Cut Scale tribe." "Where's the Cut Scale tribe?" High Priestess Blue Charm asked again. The young merman could only brace himself and continue to lie. After chatting for a while, he felt that he couldn't take it anymore. But High Priestess Blue Charm was very unsatisfied. She couldn't wait to dig out all the information about the young man. But at this moment, something strange happened. With a poof, half a sharp claw appeared out of thin air. Then, the sharp claw tore up and down, pulling left and right, directly tearing a space tunnel. The temporary space tunnel was very unstable. The pitch-black tunnel was filled with violent turbulence. However, a figure, like a boulder, walked out of the passageway with firm steps. "Oh, there are so many mermen here. Seems like this is an important place in the temple." The speaker completely entered the holy water hall. He was a barbarian. He was tall and strong. He wore a crow mask that covered the upper half of his face. His gaze was very sharp. His beard was gray, his sideburns were stained with frost, and his long black hair was tied up into a high ponytail. His aura was very strong. He was a legendary. His right hand was empty, but his left hand was wearing a claw glove. It was this claw glove that tore the space apart. The claw glove was also legendary. Ice Ripper, the legendary barbarian, Claw Crow. High Priestess Blue Charm's voice was hoarse, and her face was pale. "That's right, it's me." Claw Crow nodded. "It's your honor to die in my hands." As soon as he finished speaking, he made his move. Fighting technique, Frost Palm. He slapped out his right palm, his movements slow and leisurely. However, following his action, a violent cold wind suddenly blew through the entire hall. The cold wind swept the seawater and instantly froze it. Before the murlocs in the hall could react, they were frozen in huge ice blocks. Their faces were filled with shock and fear. High Priestess Blue Charm tried her best to resist. She propped up her holy domain to protect the young murloc. But soon, frost started to form in her holy domain. The High Priestess' eyebrows also started to be stained with white frost. Cold, cold, cold. A bone-chilling cold enveloped the young murloc's body. He was in the form of a sharkfish and was very used to cold seawater. But in this cold, he realized that he couldn't resist at all. This cold was no longer limited to matter and elements. It started to rise to the level of concepts. Once the concept of frost was completely extracted, it would be a sign that Claw Crow had reached the level of God. As expected of a legendary expert. "I can't hold on any longer." High Priestess Blue Charm smiled bitterly at the young murloc. "What a pity. We've already waited for the appearance of the Son of God. The revival of the sect is just around the corner." As she had just helped the young murloc, High Priestess Blue Charm was in a bad state. Now that she was facing a legendary enemy, she could only hold on for a few breaths' time, even if she tried her best. "I didn't expect that there would be a legendary expert hiding on the barbarian's ship. This is a hopeless situation." The young murloc's heart was filled with despair. He couldn't find any way to escape. Even though he was in the form of a sharkfish, he could use this opportunity to officially use his silver fighting power. But compared to Claw Crow in front of him, he was too weak. Chapter 320. Boom! The golden dough chi gushed out from the pirate's ship, causing it to explode. The surging water carried the fragments of the ship and the cannons in all directions. The Sea Elf commander's figure shot out from the ruins of the pirate ship. Another one. Song Su was in the captain's room of the righteous ship. Seeing this scene, his heart felt like it was being crushed by a mountain. The Sea Elf commander himself was a gold level. Not only was he a Do Chi and magic cultivator, but he was also a clergyman. That was not all. He even had a doppelganger divine art that could split himself into eight complete gold-level divine arts. Whether it was Tsang Su or Feng Yao, they had never heard of such a divine technique in the world. Doppelganger techniques were not rare, but the doppelganger illusions were often fragile, and their attack power was not as good as the original. But these weaknesses did not appear on the Sea Elf commander. Even with the buff from Feng Yao's poem, among the silver-level transcendents in the Righteous Pirates, only Zhong Ge could fight against the doppelganger of the Sea Elf commander. Feng Yao could also fight against one of them personally. As for the remaining 6, it was difficult for the Righteous Pirates to fight against them. They had no choice but to retreat. The doppelganger of the Sea Elf commander pressed forward, and the divine guards led by him also took advantage of the situation to attack. In the process of fleeing, the Righteous Pirates' pirate ships sank one after another. On the Righteous ship, Birdie knelt behind the golden cannon. He held the necklace pendant tightly with both hands, which was the divine rune of the goddess of luck. Birdie prayed with all his might, but in the temple he could clearly feel that there was a barrier between him and God. After praying, he released his hands and hurriedly checked the divine rune. Disappointment quickly appeared on his face. There was only a thin layer of 7-colored radiance on the divine rune. Although my prayer was successful, in this temple, the input of the goddess of luck's divine power has been greatly reduced. Birdie gritted his teeth and could only brace himself and begin to control the golden cannon. The 7-colored radiance lingered on the cannon, and after being divided, the radiance became very thin and almost undetectable. Birdie continuously poured his Do Chi into the golden cannon. He was only iron level, and using the golden cannon was very difficult. Soon, his Do Chi was exhausted, but the golden cannon was far from being filled. Chick hurriedly took out a potion, raised its neck, and drank it. The potion took effect very quickly, and new Do Chi gushed out from every part of his body. He channeled all of this battle Chi into the golden cannon, but the accumulation speed was still very slow. Finally, after another pirate ship was destroyed, Chick could finally fire a shot. Elf Archer Cho, Black Iron Wizard Song Su, and Ash all took the initiative to cooperate with him, preventing one of the Sea Elf commander's clones from retreating in time. Boom! The golden cannon fired. A bolt of lightning, like the sharpest spear, directly pierced through the Sea Elf commander's clone. The clone roared angrily, but in the end, it slowly dissipated in the lightning. However, the death of the doppelganger angered the other Sea Elf doppelgangers, and they all aimed their firepower at the Justice. Spell glue. Spell anaconda kill. Spell ice wound. Under the attack of the spells, the speed of the ship of Justice became very slow at first. Then it was entangled by the python-like water currents. Finally, under the spread of frost, the metal coating, the deck, and the hull of the ship became hard and brittle, lacking toughness. Crack, crack, crack. The python-like water currents increased their strength, twisting the ship of Justice into 3 pieces. Some of the people on the ship were killed on the spot, while others were lucky enough to escape. There were only 7 Sea Elf doppelgangers left, but every one of them was a wizard, a fighter, and a member of the clergy. They were about to kill the crew of the ship of Justice when the Silver Hook arrived in time. Zhong Ge was already heavily injured, but he stood at the bow of the ship, holding the demon blood sword in his hand. Quickly retreat, I'll cover the rear. The Sea Elf doppelgangers sneered, and easily went around the Silver Hook to continue their pursuit. 2 of them stayed behind to deal with Zhong Ge. You want to cover the rear? Your courage is commendable, but your stupidity is unparalleled. If you escape, you might be able to struggle at death's door for a while. Taking the initiative to cover the rear is taking the initiative to seek death. Let me fulfill your wish. The 2 gold-level Sea Elf doppelgangers attacked Zhong Ge together. They came from the same source, and their cooperation was very good. After all, they were the most familiar with each other. Bang! Zhong Ge pierced through the deck, and was directly hit into the silver hook. His chest caved in, and who knew how many of his ribs were broken? Die! The sea elf doppelgangers rushed into the cabin, raised their sharp blades, and slashed down. Battle technique. Fierce stab. The sharp blades shone with a dazzling light, forcing Zhong Gu to squint. The half-beast man felt a chill all over his body. He knew that he could not dodge in time, and if he could not block this attack, he would lose his life here. However, how could a mere silver battle technique block a gold-level battle technique? In the next moment, the sharp blades pierced through the half-beast man's chest. The remains of the ship of justice continued to sink. The crew scattered and escaped. Don't get on the other ships. In the chaotic current, Suma grabbed by ya. Those ships attract the enemy's firepower the most. We'll retreat through the suction nest. Suma was very experienced in retreating. Baya was stunned and felt that it made sense, so he fled with him. The two of them quickly arrived near the suction nest. This nest was located at the back of the battlefield and had already been discovered by the Pirates of Justice. Some were large, some were small. Song Su had already arrived here before Suma and Baya. He was fully armed, wearing a silver robe and holding a silver staff. Only the magic book was not taken out. There was no other way. The image of a necromancer made of white bones was too prominent. Seeing the Pirates of Justice continuously being defeated and the members suffering heavy casualties under the pursuit of the immortal army, Song Su's expression was extremely cold. The long-lost feelings of anger and hatred lingered in his heart, but he still remained calm and did not madly attack. Although he could use the Necromancer Magic Book to cast Silver Necromancer Magic, its power was definitely not as strong as a real Silver Mage. At the same time, even if he cast it, it would be of little help to the battle. He took out a magic scroll from his arms and cast the spells recorded in it, helping the important members of the pirates to escape here. Zongo. After a while, Song Su looked at the gradually sinking silver hook in the distance, and his heart was very heavy. He did not see Zong Ji's figure, but most of the important members escaped successfully. The Sea Elf Commander's clone followed closely behind. There was no way to stay. Song Su took the lead and plunged into the nest, leaving the battlefield. Baya, Suma, and the others followed one after another. After a while, Song Su came alone to an unfamiliar underwater corridor. Except for him, there were no other members of the Pirates of Justice. Even if it is the same nest, because of the changes in the water flow, after passing through, there will be a change in position. Song Su sighed. He knew the mystery of the nest. As soon as he entered the underwater temple, the captain was teleported away. Now, the entire fleet had suffered heavy losses, and he did not know how many people would survive. The members of the Pirates of Justice were forced to scatter and escape, which could be easily defeated one by one. After all, this was the enemy's nest. Sigh, I have to quickly regroup with the others, but how should I do it? At this time, the nest spat out again, and a Sea Elf Commander clone chased here. Human mage, a mere black iron, to die in my hands, it is your honor. The Sea Elf Commander clone sneered at Song Su. At this moment, Song Su felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Chapter 321. A cold glint flashed. The clone of the Sea Elf Commander coldly slashed at Song Su. Song Su froze in place, motionless, and was cut in half by the blade. But the clone of the Sea Elf Commander exclaimed, "Mirror image? When did you cast it?" The real Song Su was nowhere to be seen. He had only killed a mirror image. The Sea Elf Commander snorted coldly and immediately cast a spell. A surging circle of light expanded violently with him as the center. The hidden Song Su was drifting when he was swept by the circle of light. He fell forward and revealed himself. The Sea Elf Commander discovered that Song Su had already fled 100 steps away. He did not chase after him, but cast a spell instead. 5 magic missiles with a dazzling blue-purple fluorescence cut through the water and shot at Song Su. Song Su hurriedly took out a magic scroll and tore it open. It turned into a halo that covered his entire body. Then he leaned against the wall and barely dodged 2 magic missiles, but was hit by the remaining 3. Song Su seemed to have been punched in the back by 3 punches. The halo on his body weakened to an undetectable level. Magic Missile was a low-level spell and easy to learn. But when used by a gold-level expert, Song Su had to use all his strength to defend against it. Song Su was not happy that he had defended against the magic missiles. On the contrary, alarm bells were ringing in his heart. This is just a method he uses to restrain me. Song Su did not even turn his head. He hurriedly took out another scroll and tore it open almost instantly. The next moment, his speed increased, and he darted forward like a swimming fish. Almost at the same time, the clone of the Sea Elf commander pounced. A distance of 100 steps was nothing to him. But he pounced on nothing. You're quite slippery. The clone of the Sea Elf commander continued to chase. But Song Su's wealth surprised him. Generally speaking, it took time to cast magic. Magic scrolls, on the other hand, could be used to instantly cast spells. It was with the help of the magic scrolls that Song Su was able to gain a few crucial seconds at the critical moment, causing the attacks of the Sea Elf commander's clone to miss time and time again. Song Su ran and chased for a while. Then, he bumped into a group of divine guards. After being restrained, the Sea Elf commander's clone finally caught up to him. "Where do you think you're going? Die, little rat." The Sea Elf commander's clone was already enraged and immediately attacked Song Su. Song Su's face was pale. Although he knew that he was going to die, he still wanted to resist. Undead spell, Flying Bone Shield. He finally displayed his true ability. Bone shields the size of wash basins flew out and circled around him. The white bone flying shield blocked the attack of the immortal guards, but in front of the Ocean Elf commander, it was as fragile as paper and was quickly destroyed. It's actually a necromancer. He deserves to die. Song Su snorted coldly, his heart full of determination. Even if you die, you won't have an easy time. Undead spell, Corpse Explosion. There are no corpses on the field. The target of the spell was Song Su himself. Song Su's body had been modified by the undead spell. He was half human and half corpse, making him an effective target of the corpse explosion. However, just as Song Su was about to drag the enemy down with him, one of the divine guards suddenly approached him and patted his shoulder. The corpse explosion that Song Su was about to cast came to an abrupt stop. Song Su groaned, his vision turning black, and he almost fell down. While he was still in shock, he saw the divine guard who attacked him take the initiative to face the clone of the Sea Elf commander. Boom! Both sides exchanged blows, water surging wildly. They were actually evenly matched. "Who are you?" The clone of the Sea Elf commander asked sternly. The city guard tore off his disguise and said with a smile, "I'm also a necromancer." Song Su stared blankly and was greatly surprised. The necromancer who appeared had the cultivation of the gold rank, but his appearance was clearly that of the master of the secret chamber at the bottom of the sea. How did Song Su know the appearance of the master of the secret chamber at the bottom of the sea? It was very simple. The toad safe recorded the appearance, voice, blood type, and so on of the master of the secret chamber at the bottom of the sea as verification evidence for the unlocking process. He was obviously at the silver rank. How did he advance to the gold rank in the temple? Song Su guessed in his heart. If not for the fact that Song Su wanted to cast the corpse explosion and endanger everyone, this necromancer would probably continue to hide. The necromancer and the Sea Elf commander confronted each other. Kill! The rest of the divine guards found that there was a traitor among them and charged towards the necromancer. The necromancer snorted coldly and snapped his fingers. The divine guards who were charging towards him suddenly stopped. Bone spikes appeared on their bones and drilled out violently, turning the divine guards into hedgehogs and killing them all. During the disguise, he had already secretly cast a spell. At this moment, he only needed to cast a specific spell wave to trigger this necromancy spell. After the divine guards died, their pupils lit up with blue soul flames. Attracted by the necromancer, they all charged towards the clone of the Sea Elf commander. He took the opportunity to turn around and pointed his finger at Song Su, his killing intent clear. When two strong opponents fought, the first thing to do was to clear the area. He did not want an outsider to take advantage of the situation after he and the clone of the Sea Elf commander were both injured. Song Su was pointed at by the necromancer, and his heart beat wildly. At the moment of life and death, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He took out an item and shouted, "One of us!" The necromancer's pupils shrank, and he stopped. Song Su gasped for breath. He had a complicated feeling after escaping with his life. There was relief, lingering fear, and most of it was fear. At this critical moment, he showed the necromancer the badge he had obtained from the secret chamber at the bottom of the sea. The badge had a special power. It was extremely difficult to fake it. The necromancer believed him. He was about to speak when his expression suddenly changed. He quickly turned around to face the enemy. The clone of the Sea Elf commander was trained in magic, fighting energy, and divine arts. Seeing that the opponent was a necromancer, of course he would use his close combat advantage. The necromancer did not have time to cast a spell. He stretched out his left pinky. The bone on his pinky exploded, and he instantly cast a flying bone shield. The bone shields danced in the air. Each one was twice as big as Song Su's bone shield. There were a total of 6 bone shields, blocking the clone of the Sea Elf commander. The Sea Elf commander twisted his body and hit the shield. Suddenly, he stepped diagonally and stomped on the wall. He bypassed the necromancer and went straight for Song Su. The two were fighting. He had to kill Song Su first and do his best to eliminate all hidden dangers and variables. The necromancer quickly cast a spell. Countless white bone arms suddenly extended from the walls, ceiling, and floor of the corridor and grabbed the Sea Elf commander. Song Su quickly retreated. If not for the necromancer's help, he would have been beheaded by the enemy. Hundreds and thousands of white bone arms grabbed the clone of the Sea Elf commander. The latter kept struggling and stirring his fighting energy. His body shone with the light of divine arts. The necromancer maintained the spell, and his expression became more and more difficult. "Senior, catch." The next moment, Song Su threw the silver staff in his hand to the necromancer. The necromancer took it and used it. Immediately, the effect of his magic power increased greatly, and the clone of the Sea Elf commander that was about to break free was dragged back. "Good staff. I also made an identical one, but I didn't bring it with me," the necromancer praised. Chapter 322. The Sea Elf commander's sharp blade pierced into Zhong Ji's left chest and then through his back. A large portion of the blade protruded from the left side of Zhong Ji's back. However, Zhong Ge did not die. The Sea Elf commander clone revealed a strange expression. Lionheart. He practiced martial arts diligently. At his level, the blade could be considered as a part of his body. From the process of the blade piercing, he sensed that he did not pierce the half-beast man's heart. The Sea Elf commander's guess was correct. Zhong Ge was a hybrid between a beast man and a human. His appearance was between that of a lion man and a human, and his internal structure was also different from that of an ordinary human. A normal person's heart was located on the left side of the chest, but Zhong Ji's heart was located in the center, in front of the spine, and in the upper middle of the ribs. As a result, the Sea Elf commander's fatal attack missed. However, this did not mean that Zhong Ge was out of danger, because when the Ocean Elf commander clone noticed this, he immediately poured battle chi into the sword. Gold rank combat chi could leave the body. As long as it passed through the blade and exploded in the body of the half-beastman, his heart, lungs, etc. would be instantly minced by the gold-ranked combat chi. Zhong Ge also realized this. He wanted to withdraw, but it was difficult to escape in such a short time. The blade of the sword nailed him to the ship behind him. In the next moment, the eruption of Do Chi occurred. Left with no choice, the beast man who was forced up the cliff could only gather all the battle energy in his body and gather it near the wound created by the sword, firmly surrounding the sword. "You're merely at the silver rank. How can you withstand my gold battle aura?" The Ocean Elf commander's clone sneered. "Die." Golden battle chi instantly erupted. No matter how much silver battle chi he accumulated, it would be torn apart, penetrated, and pushed aside by gold battle chi. There was a qualitative difference between the two. The golden combat chi broke through the defense of Zhong Ji's silver combat chi and rushed towards his heart like a ferocious beast. Ah! The beast man roared. His eyes were red, and his hair was dancing in anger. No! He roared in his heart. My life must not end here. I still have my father's expectations. I have yet to truly accomplish anything. How can I die here? Under the all-out effort of his body and mind, a qualitative change was coming. The Ocean Elf Commander's Golden Do Chi was stopped abruptly by Zhong Ji's Do Chi. The Sea Elf Commander's clone trembled. This was because he felt the change in Zhong Ji's aura. At that moment, Zhong Ji's aura leaped from silver to gold. Zhonggu was already at the pinnacle of silver and was only one step away from gold. After passing through Bewilderment Island and disguising himself as a pirate on the ship of justice, he kept fighting and accumulating strength. Finally, at this moment, in response to his cry, his life force level broke through to the gold level. Gold battle aura naturally had a qualitative improvement compared to silver battle aura. Taking advantage of the Sea Elf Commander's shock, Zhonggu leaned back and used the back of his head to smash the hull of the ship. He retreated quickly and pulled out the other party's sword from his left chest. The Beastman was finally free, breaking through before death. How wonderful, just like a legend, ha ha ha. The Sea Elf Commander's clone laughed and calmed down again. How old are you? You're already gold. Your bloodline isn't simple. You're a rare genius. But it's a pity you're destined to die here today, died by my hands. The Sea Elf Commander was very confident. His judgment of the battle was not wrong. Even though Zhonggu had advanced to the gold rank, his Do Chi was almost completely depleted. Apart from this, Zhonggu was seriously injured. Blood was flowing out of his left chest. The Do Chi that the Sea Elf Commander released just now had impacted his body, causing him to have a lot of internal injuries. On the other hand, the Sea Elf Commander had a total of 2 golden clones. They were in good condition and had no injuries. Most of their Do Chi, magic power, and even divine power were preserved. The Sea Elf Commander had an absolute advantage. Zhonggu also knew this. Then come. He held the hilt with both hands and raised the demonic blood sword. Hee. The Sea Elf Commander's 2 golden clones laughed lightly and attacked together. Zhonggu blocked left and right, but he was constantly injured. His blood almost dyed the surrounding water red. The Sea Elf Commander's golden clones were not only strong, but the 2 golden clones also cooperated very well. There were no openings. Zhonggu could not see any hope. He had already exceeded the limits of his physical body. Even if he died in the next moment, he would not be surprised. His eyes were dim, and his mind was in a semi-conscious state. It was hard for him to think. The reason he could continue to hold on was because of his body's instinctive counterattack. His battle awareness, which he had painstakingly trained in the past, had already merged into his bones, his flesh and blood. Under the stimulation of his great survival instinct, Zhong Ji's persistence surprised even himself. This guy, the 2 Sea Elf Commander's golden clones, also had strange expressions. There's clearly no hope, but he's still holding on. Amazing, this is the first time I've seen such a brave warrior fight to the death. Even though he's only a mixed blood, his will to fight is truly moving. The 2 Sea Elf Commander's golden clones could not help but reveal a solemn and admiring look. What's your name? Tell us your name. Today's battle is both our glory, the Sea Elf Commander asked with a solemn expression. But Zhonggu floated in the water and did not seem to hear. Seeing his absent-minded eyes, the Sea Elf Commander understood. He's already at the end of his rope. He can't even hear me clearly. Respectable, admirable. Let's give him the final blow. The 2 golden clones were about to cast a spell when they suddenly paused. There's a problem with one of the golden clones. I didn't expect a gold-ranked necromancer to sneak in. I'll go support him. You take care of him and meet up with us. The 2 golden clones conversed and quickly split up. In the underwater corridor, the necromancer had already taken control of the situation. The Sea Elf commander's golden clones were surrounded by countless bone hands. He wanted to break through, but was repeatedly suppressed. Necromancy was known for being strange and sinister. This was a new school of thought. This caused the Sea Elf commander's golden clones to be unable to find the correct way to break through. As time dragged on, the difficulty of breaking through became greater and greater. Senior, thank you for saving me. Please give me a chance to repay this kindness. Song Su said sincerely. Senior, you can call me Old Joan. Senior, what's your name? You can call me Ship Ghost. That's my code name. The gold-ranked necromancer maintained his spell while nodding and smiling at Song Su. He did not suspect Song Su. That badge was not fake. Other than his teacher, even a Grandmaster Alchemist would not be able to forge it. The silver staff in his hand also proved that Song Su was one of them, because the method of making this staff was one of the contents of his teacher's teachings. Ship Ghost had made it before, so he was very familiar with it. Junior Zhong, why did you come here? The necromancer called Ship Ghost asked. Senior, I heard that Blue Charm God was in a deep slumber, so I came here to steal her godly power to further my development. Song Su replied. Ship Ghost laughed and looked at Song Su. You have the same idea as me, but you're much more daring than me. 3 years ago, I was a silver mage. I planned for a long time before I disguised myself as a believer and snuck in here. I used the identity of a desecration priest to steal godly power and secretly improve myself. That's how I reached my current cultivation. 3 years ago, Song Su was stunned. He was about to speak when a shocking aura came from the corridor. The owner of the aura was quickly approaching them. Song Su and Ship Ghost expressions changed. They were very familiar with this aura. The Sea Elf commander's golden clones that were trapped in the bone hand cage laughed. My support is here. I guarantee that you'll learn an unforgettable lesson. Damn it, Ship Ghost gritted his teeth. Even if I'm a gold mage, it's still hard for me to kill an enemy of the same level. The battle quickly took a turn for the worse. Ship Ghost knew that he couldn't maintain his spell and deal with an enemy of the same level at the same time. If only I had my robe with me. I purposely enchanted it so that I can instantly use the bone wall spell. Ship Ghost sighed and asked Song Su, do you know how to use the bone wall spell? Before Song Su could answer, he shook his head. No, even if you know how to use it, you can't use it with me. Only if I use the bone wall spell and bone hand cage spell at the same time can I combine these two spells to create a bone tomb and temporarily trap the enemy. As soon as he finished speaking, Song Su took off his robe and threw it to Ship Ghost. Senior brother, quickly wear it. I also have an instant bone wall spell in my robe. What? Ship Ghost was stunned. Song Su quickly put on his own robe and rushed over to put on Ship Ghost. Whether it was the robe or the staff, they all had Song Su's mental imprint. But Song Su had already communicated with him and made adjustments. Ship Ghost could use it as he wished. When you made the robe, you also chose the bone wall spell. Good taste. Ship Ghost was overjoyed. Chapter 323. Coldness spread from the bottom of his heart. The young Murloc looked at the ice ripper in the distance and felt bitter. His opponent was a legendary figure. His reputation wasn't limited to the Frost Continent, but to the entire world. The difference between him and his opponent was too big. He was only a silver now. Above silver was gold, and above gold was divine. However, even the Sanctuary-level High Priestess Blue Charm could barely maintain her Sanctuary level. Her Saint Domain was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye under the onslaught of this harsh cold. Once the divine domain shrank to the extreme, the High Priest and a young Murloc would only freeze to death without any protection. But just as the two were in a desperate situation, something unexpected happened. Behind them, the fish god statue suddenly shone with blinding light. The light covered the entire hall. Everywhere it went, the Murlocs that were frozen into popsicles all recovered. The ice on their bodies dissipated, and they all regained their freedom. The high priest's divine domain expanded rapidly under the injection of the light. Within a few breaths, it surpassed her peak. "Welcome, my lord." The high priest became very excited and fanatical. She directly knelt on the ground. The magnificent light quickly condensed and turned into a murloc. The murloc's forehead was decorated with gems. His fish scales were as clear as crystal. He was tall and had thick lips. His muscles were firm and smooth. As soon as the fish god incarnation appeared, he attracted everyone's attention. The murlocs worshipped him and fanatically. The Ice Ripper Claw Crow was solemn and serious. The fish god incarnation walked down slowly. He paused slightly and stopped in front of the high priest. He reached out his wide palm and stroked her hair. Then, the incarnation looked at the young murloc. The young murloc's heart skipped a beat, but the incarnation only smiled at him and nodded slightly. Then, he walked past him and walked toward Claw Crow. Claw Crow saw the fish god incarnation walking toward him. The pressure on his mind skyrocketed. They were still 200 or 300 steps apart. Claw Crow couldn't take it anymore. He roared and attacked first. The fish god incarnation blocked it easily. At the same time, he waved his arm back and spread out a wave of light. The light quickly dissipated. All the murlocs and preachers, including the young murloc and the high priest, were teleported back to the billow hall. After that, the fish god incarnation continued to walk toward Claw Crow. Claw Crow roared and pushed his palms forward. Battle technique, severe frost palm. The Ice Ripper unleashed the same battle technique as before, but this time it was going all out. A crazy chill filled the entire hall in an instant. Ice and snow surged. The seawater in the hall was instantly frozen, trapping the Claw Crow and the fish god. Joie used all his strength and didn't even care about himself, but he was also frozen. His battle chi was rapidly depleting as he maintained the frost palm technique in an attempt to stop the fish god's avatar from advancing. But it didn't work. The fish deity's incarnation was enveloped in a thin layer of divine light, and he didn't stop moving. He walked through the ice, and wherever he went, the ice melted and turned back into flowing seawater. Claw Crow's pupils shrank. He gritted his teeth and performed another attack. Battle skill, cold battle axe. He stopped his severe frost palm and rubbed his hands together. Do Chi gushed out from his palms and rotated, finally condensing into an axe blade. He continued to stack his fighting aura. The axe blade spun continuously in his palm. It spun faster and faster, and the axe blade also became bigger and bigger. After 3 breaths, the axe blade shot out. It easily cut through all the ice that was blocking its way and flew to the fish god's avatar in the blink of an eye. The fish god's avatar didn't dodge. He raised his eyes slightly, opened his mouth, and swallowed the super powerful battle skill that was shot at him. The cold battle axe entered his body and suddenly exploded. But the fish god's avatar's stomach only bulged a little, and then it calmed down. Now, how is this possible? Joie witnessed this scene and was completely shocked. He was very confident in his abilities. It wasn't that he hadn't fought against the avatars of gods before. He even had experience fighting against the original gods. Whether it was the severe frost palm or the cold battle axe, they were all his outstanding offensive skills. Even the Shengming Emperor's avatar has to resist my attacks. But the Blue Charm avatar is so relaxed. How can he be on par with the Shengming Emperor? Joie suddenly thought of something. He remembered the instructions of the barbarian elder before he left. Could it be, with great difficulty, he took out a gem from his bosom? At this moment, the fish god's avatar had already walked to the front of Joie. He slowly reached out his hand and reached for Joie's heart. Joie didn't doubt that once the fish god's avatar touched him, his heart would be dug out. At this critical moment, Joie didn't choose to use his most trusted defense. Instead, he poured his battle power and spirit into the sapphire in his hand. The sapphire he took out was extraordinary. It was like the reflection of starlight in the ocean, and it emitted a cold and sharp light. The barbarian elder gave this sapphire to Joie personally before he left. He also told Joie to take it out at the most critical moment. Joie studied this sapphire for a long time. But no matter what he did, the sapphire didn't react at all. It really seemed like a normal sapphire. If the barbarian elder didn't give it to him seriously, he might have thrown it away like trash. At this moment, when he took it out, he knew he made the right bet. The sapphire emitted rays of divine light, and a god-level aura emerged. An eye gradually appeared in the crystal-clear sapphire. This eye was drawn with a smooth and beautiful golden line, and it emitted the sharpest and most ruthless gaze in the world. Golden pupil, God's eye. At this moment, Joyeux was more shocked than happy. He didn't expect that a god's eye was sealed in the sapphire. The golden pupil emitted rays of divine light and shone on the surroundings. The ice that Joyeux froze turned into waves of horrifying cold air. The ocean disappeared, and so did the temple. The incarnation of the fish god stopped for the first time, and he started to retreat. He's scared. Joyeux was shocked. This situation was still out of his expectation. Normally, the incarnation of a god should have the upper hand. After all, Joyeux was only holding a god's eye. But the incarnation of the fish god retreated. Strange. Joyeux was full of doubts, but it didn't stop him from attacking. He held the sapphire high and started to charge at the incarnation of the fish god. What happened next shocked him to the core. Wherever the gaze of the god eye shone, everything turned into nothingness. The magnificent temple, the gorgeous holy water pond, and even the incarnation of the fish god were the same. The incarnation of the fish god retreated faster and faster. But his existence seemed to have angered the divine pupil in the sapphire. The divine pupil suddenly emitted a ray of divine light, and it hit the back of the incarnation of the fish god. The incarnation of the fish god disappeared immediately, as if it was just a light shadow that never really existed. Could it be? Joyeux was a legendary master who had been famous for a long time. He was knowledgeable, and he gradually had a guess. Could it be the eye of the god of truth? Chapter 3:24. The god of truth was originally a god of the human race, but because of his rebellion, he angered the Shengming emperor. The god of truth fell into a trap and was lured out of his god country. The Shengming emperor personally took action. It was said that the battle caused the sky to fall and the earth to split. A corner of the Shengming continent completely disappeared, and the nearby highlands became low-lying swamps. The god of truth was about to die, so he took the initiative to dig out his own eyeballs and then pounced on the Shengming emperor without caring about his own safety. Although the Shengming emperor completely killed the god of truth, he also missed the opportunity to let the god of truth's eyeballs turn into shooting stars and fly away. This battle was described in detail in the teachings of the Shengming sect. After this battle, many bards, composers, and musicians also created many works to praise the power of the Shengming emperor and the regret of the god of truth's death. I didn't expect it to be the god of truth's eyeballs. Ever since the god of truth died, the Shengming emperor has been sending people to search the world for this pair of eyeballs. I didn't expect to have one of them in my hands at this moment. As for why the barbarian elder had it, Ice Ripper Joie, you had no idea. It's said that the god of truth's eyeballs can see the truth of the world and see through all illusions. If that's the case, then I understand the truth of this blue charm temple. Joyeux's eyes flashed as he raised the god of truth. The divine light shot out of the god of truth's eye and shone everywhere. Under the divine light, the magnificent temple began to crumble and slowly dissipate like an illusion. Rumble. Because of the continuous illumination of the divine light, the damaged temple started to tremble and let out a low rumble. The tremors hadn't reached the corridor of the underwater temple yet. The gold necromancer ship Ghost was panting. He was wearing a silver magic robe and holding a silver magic staff. The head of the staff was pointed at a tomb. This tomb was completely made of white bones and was now in the final stage of closing. From the last gap, Sang Su could see the resentment and anger of the Sea Elf Commander clone. Crack! With a soft sound, the pile of bones finally closed completely, completely suppressing the clone of a sea elf commander. Undead spell, Bone Grave. This was a combination of Bone Wall and Bone Handcage. Song Su witnessed the entire spell-casting process with his own eyes and praised in his heart. Ship Phantom's talent is amazing. His spell-casting skills are superb. I can't compare to him. However, to be able to catch the eye of that person, be taken in as an apprentice, and be bestowed with an emblem at the same time, his talent can't be too bad. The ship ghost solidified the bone tomb for a moment. After confirming that the suppression was successful, he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and smiled at Song Su. Thank you for your staff and robe. After this battle, he had a good impression of Song Su. Not only was he one of their own, but Song Su had also lent him his equipment without hesitation, showing Song Su's decisiveness and trust. Necromancer Ship Ghost had always been a lone cultivator. Although he knew his teacher had other apprentices, he had never interacted with them, let alone contacted them. Song Su was the first one of his own he had met, one of his own who had similar tastes to his own. Song Su smiled at Ship Ghost. Senior brother, you can use this equipment first. They will be much more useful in your hands than in mine. Ship Ghost nodded. That's good. You follow me from now on, I will protect you. Our identities have been exposed, and this is the Blue Charm Temple. It is not a place to stay. We need to retreat as soon as possible. Song Su frowned slightly. I still have some companions. Ship Ghost shook his head. It's too late to save them. Let's escape first. What do you think you're escaping to? A sharp shout suddenly came. The two necromancers looked over, and their expressions changed. One of the clones of the Sea Elf commander that had fought Zonga before had rushed over to help. Stand back. Ship Ghost ordered and stood up to fight. Song Su obeyed and retreated far away, watching the battle from afar. Ship Ghost and the second Sea Elf commander were fighting. Both sides were evenly matched and were in a stalemate. The Sea Elf commander cultivated magic, chi, and divine spells. He had many tricks up his sleeves. Ship Ghost had 2 new pieces of equipment and had no weaknesses. Necromancers were strange and unpredictable, often catching people off guard. Song Su watched the battle carefully and did not plan to interfere. He was only a Black Iron level. If he interfered and attracted the attention of the Sea Elf commander's clone, it would not be worth it. After all, Ship Ghost's help might not always be in time. Song Su also did not plan to give a spellbook to Ship Ghost. Silver-level robes and staffs were all standardized. As long as that person took in apprentices, they would teach them how to make them. But spellbooks were different. The number of pages in a spellbook and what spells were recorded on each page were all decided by the person who made them. So, the robes and staffs could be lent to Ship Ghost. But if the spellbook was lent to Ship Ghost, it would immediately arouse the latter's suspicion. I'm afraid this will be a long battle, Song Su thought as he watched the battle. He remembered clearly that Ship Ghost had unintentionally revealed a crucial piece of information. He was still a silver-level mage 3 years ago. That's impossible. The time doesn't match. All the evidence from the secret underwater room proved that when Ship Ghost disguised himself as a cultist and left, he was definitely a silver level. Ship Ghost's identity was also confirmed. His appearance, figure, etc. were all the same as the information in Toad's safe. 3 years. Ship Ghost has no reason to lie to me about this. Why 3 years? It's only been 2 to 3 months. Something's wrong. At this moment, the tremors of the temple were transmitted over. The underwater corridor kept shaking as if there was an earthquake. The shaking quickly became more intense, giving Song Su a feeling that it was about to collapse. What's going on? The necromancer, Ship Ghost, and the clone of the Sea Elf commander were both surprised. Their attacks slowed down because of this. The next moment, the necromancer's eyes widened as he watched the clone of the Sea Elf commander slowly dissipate like bubbles in water. What happened? The necromancer suddenly turned his head and looked at the bone tomb that he had created. He could feel that the clone of the Sea Elf commander that was sealed inside had also disappeared. Could it be that the clone divine spell's time limit is up? Song Su rushed back to Ship Go's side. Ship Go suddenly exclaimed and exclaimed. He looked at his own body in astonishment. His aura was rapidly changing, falling from the original gold rank to silver rank. At the same time, on another battlefield, Zhong Ji's injuries were terrifying, and he was already unconscious. There's no use in struggling. You'll still die by my hands in the end. The clone of the Sea Elf commander decapitated Zhong Ge. The moment the blade touched Zhong Ji's neck, it gradually faded and finally disappeared along with the clone of the Sea Elf commander. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.